Hello and welcome to Fool and Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
Yeah, so I think my biggest problem with Tears of the Kingdom, I think I've sort of narrowed it down and figured it out. Well, first of all, so when I went to Pyrrha and she said, we need to change our approach, I felt this amazing sense of relief. Like I hadn't really read that, I guess, the first time around. Just went through my body. Felt like, yes, I can enjoy this game, I can have fun, I'm so excited. And then I went and I was about to get in the tower and I was hit by like the Satan himself with this spike of anxiety that was just like, no. Just this like feeling of, no, you cannot have fun, no, you cannot relax, no. Because Zelda said, Link, you must find me. So you must find her still.
Mm.
That was a weird experience. And I think I can actually figure out part of why that happened. And it's part of a broader topic I want to talk about. But I think my problem with the sort of, I guess, game design of Tears of the Kingdom, just in this little aspect, is that, let's say you never played Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Or any Zelda game. This is your first Zelda game.
Yes.
So your first mission, essentially, is find Zelda, go to these 4 points, and find Zelda.
Yeah.
So you go to the 4 points, you're like, okay, I'm going to rush to the 4 points, I go to them, I find Zelda, and then, theoretically, the game's over. Or they say something like, go kill Ganon now, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's no point where the game tells you what... I'm trying to figure out how to put this. So you at the start of the game, you want to go to Pyrrha, you want to go to Captain Hawes, and you want to go to Robbie to get your basic gear. It's basically a giant long tutorial.
Yeah.
After you finish the Sky Island. And so your goal shouldn't be to search every nook and cranny. It should be to go to these guys and get all the gear, and then you sort of start.
Yeah.
And even more so, you might want to go to the Great Mine, and that will also, or something similar like that, and that will also get you your final piece of starting gear, and then you can play the game in the open world. Yeah. So with open world games, there's always a point where it's like, hey, tutorial's over, go free. They don't have a moment where they really say what that is, because you might think, okay, once I find Zelda, then it's an open world, and I go free. And so you're just sort of, and that's sort of how I viewed it the first time around. It was like, okay, I get Zelda, and then it's the open world.
Yeah.
They also don't... What Breath of the Wild did was... There's no goal in Tears of the Kingdom exactly. In Breath of the Wild, the moment you're off the Great Plateau, you see giant words, kill Ganon. And you see exactly where he is. You're like, okay, that's the goal. You can go there. If you've never played the game, you can run right up to the castle steps and get killed by every guardian along the way and everything in the way, and then killed by Ganon himself if you somehow make it there. And you're like, okay, I need to find a way to weaken him.
Yeah.
Because you're given hints at that right then as well. In this one, there is no goal. It's this sort of vague, turn over every rock and see if clues pop out for finding Zelda.
Yeah.
There's not really a... Now, what that does mean, and I think they probably did this on purpose, it means that no matter what you do, you're looking for clues.
Yeah.
Like, a Korok might be the guy that tells you, oh yeah, Zelda, she's just over there. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a mindset thing, because for me, in the first game, everything I did made me stronger to fight Ganon.
Yeah.
No matter what I did, I was... Like, even if I'm getting money, it's like, this money I can use to buy new gear that I can use to fight Ganon. Everything helps me fight Ganon. And also, there was no rush, because it's been 100 years. Like, she can handle another year or two.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in this game, the time frame is a little odd. It seems as though it's probably been a couple years since the end of the first game, but then the amount of time you were missing for might be in the several months. It's hard to tell what the time frame is exactly.
That's what I felt like. My thoughts on the timeline, because it might have said at some point, but I don't remember. My thought on timelines is about half a year to 2 years since the first game, and then Link was gone for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, the only thing, there seems to be a lot of stuff Link isn't aware of that seems to have been going on for some time. For example, the Cataclysm in the Gerudo region, to keep it vague.
Yeah.
They've built adaptions for it. And in order to build an adaptation to a disaster, you first have to realize, okay, this is ongoing, it's not a temporary blip. Yeah. So they would have sat for a week or two just waiting for it to pass over. And then when it doesn't pass over, then they think, okay, well now we need to do something about this. And then you got to organize people, and then you got to build stuff, and that takes time too.
Yeah.
So that does seem to suggest... Well, I guess if they were really efficient, maybe only a couple months.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the world where you have, what's his face, the Builder Man?
Oh, Bolson?
Yeah, in a world where Bolson can literally construct a building by being fired up, and it takes him like 2 hours to make a house.
Yeah.
You do have to look at that perspective.
There is some supernaturally talented people, I guess, yeah. And then the towers all around the world. Link didn't have a chance to test them, but they seem like a possibly new concept to him. I'm not quite sure about that, because I guess he could have just seen them going up and not really thought much about them.
Yeah.
Also, all metal has degraded, which I guess Link isn't surprised by.
Yeah, well, that's
why they went down in the first place.
Because metal is degrading and people are getting sick.
Yeah. And yeah, so I guess the timeline could just be a couple months.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're a brand new player, it almost feels like they want you to have played Breath of the Wild to understand, not story-wise, but to understand the structure of a Zelda game.
Well, here's the secondary thing to that statement, is you do have to keep in mind with that Tears of the Kingdom is DLC.
It was intended to be, yeah.
Yeah.
But you've said that, and I was looking for some answers online, like you never should, apparently. But from my experience, anyways, and several people did say it's just Breath of the Wild, and that doesn't work as an explanation for me. It feels dismissive in a way, I guess, but I think they might be right in a sense. It's like they expect you to just be saying, "Oh yeah, this is just a continuation of Breath of the Wild."
Yeah.
But it could also be that, they do testing for these things. And maybe they found that a story where they gave you a central goal and said, go here, like kill Ganon, abandoned more players than a goal of, there's someone somewhere in this 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer map, find them. Or not even, there's hints about a person's location somewhere in this 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer map.
Is that how big it is?
It might be 10 miles, but it's something like that, yeah. Go find them. And then, of course, all the tunnels and the sky and the underground. It's massive.
Yeah, it's very big. That's what I was thinking, because if it's that plus the 3 layers of map.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive.
And then you also have to add in, you climb up things, climb down.
Yeah, there's the verticality doesn't matter from it in a sense because it all flattens out, except the caves change that, because now it doesn't. Because there's
also just caves in Hyrule. You can walk over a mountain with stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And there's sub caves, and then there's deep caves.
See, if there wasn't caverns, let's say, surface level caves.
Yeah.
If those didn't exist, it would just be 3 maps.
Yeah.
And the sky map is barely a map.
Yeah.
You can tell they have outdoor shrines in some places on the sky map.
Yeah.
And I don't say outdoor shrines as in there's what I mean is in Breath of the Wild, there's a loading screen every time you go inside a shrine.
Yeah.
A Sheikah shrine. There is Sheikah shrine-like puzzles just up in the sky without any loading screens because there's nothing else to keep loaded in.
Yeah.
You can just walk up to them and start playing with the machinery because there's almost nothing for it to keep track of.
Yeah.
I've actually only had one situation where the game froze for a minute while it was loading in stuff because I did a very weird maneuver where I popped out of the loading zone of the underworld and then fell right back down into it. And so it had to reload the underworld after it unloaded it.
Yeah.
And that took a minute. But they hide it with all these tunnels and holes and and the sky takes up basically no processing power relative to anything else. So, but the underworld is massive and the surface is massive. And maybe they found people are like, hey, just go free. Because a lot of people, when they play a typical open world game, a Ubisoft open world game, or even Rockstar, you just sort of go everywhere and play around, and you don't really concern yourself with the story or why you're doing any of it. It's just get the stuff, do the thing, check off the boxes. And that maybe more people like that approach than needing a reason behind doing things. And of course, there's always a reason. You always get reputation or money, or like in Just Cause, you support your group's cause.
Yeah.
You forward your cause. And in Far Cry, you get more gear so you can make better items, and you get more money in Grand Theft Auto. But it is just sort of copy-pasted fluff everywhere.
Yeah.
And Tears of the Kingdom feels like it follows that pattern more. It's not copy-pasted stuff. It's all very proprietary, unique to the location. But it feels like it's more for the kind of person that just likes checking off lists rather than... That's not quite right. It feels like they're giving you a bunch of stuff you can do, rather than in Breath of the Wild, there's a bunch of things you can find.
Yeah.
Maybe that makes more sense.
Potentially that. My experience with Tears of the Kingdom playing it is I would come up with a goal that I need to do, which would help me in finding Zelda.
Yeah.
So I took that on. So I'm trying to find Zelda. And then I treat it as Link does what's right in the moment.
Right.
And I wanted to do it. So basically, I would go towards a goal, but if I saw something like, okay, there's something over there, let's go investigate that.
Right.
And then I look at it, it's like, oh, there's something to do here, okay.
But that's a sort of a meta justification, self-justification thing, right? Like you're saying Link would do what's right in the moment. That's not stated as, you must do what's right in the moment. The game isn't telling you, hey, you, do what's right in the moment.
Yeah, I play games on a meta level.
Right. But looking at this from a game design perspective,
yeah.
What is the game telling the player? The game is saying, it seems to me the game is saying, wander about and do stuff that's fun.
Yes, the game is saying that.
And don't worry about any of the...
so there's some cognitive dissonance going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no... Well, no. There is for me, let's say, to a degree. But no, I don't... Well, sort of. No, not exactly. Because, like I was saying before we started, if your goal was just to find Zelda as quickly as possible, there is still no other way to really play the game than to just investigate whatever you can. Because you have no idea what will be a lead and what won't be.
Yeah.
And the thing that what helped me, I think, or the answer to my question and my problem of the previous episode is two things. It's Pyrrha says we need to change our approach. So basically all that hurry was to get you to the captain and then to get you from the captain to Pyrrha.
Yeah.
And Link, you must find me, looking at that was to get you to Pyrrha in the first place.
Yeah.
Which I don't like how they did one part of that. The hurry to the captain, hurry to Pyrrha, I don't mind. When Zelda says Link, you must find me and looks at the place, I think something more along the lines of her looking at the place where Pyrrha is and saying, Link, find me here, or something like that. Because that you do see her almost right away after you go there.
Yeah.
I think that would have been better. Because then it's like, oh, she said find me here, so you go and find her there, and then she disappears. I think that would have been a better way to do it, because this is actually, it was like 3 weeks of tearing up my brain. Because what does the phrase, Link, you must find me, mean? It's a really weird phrase. She had enough time to give you a sentence, but she doesn't convey any meaningful information within it. She doesn't say, Link, go to the Spring of Courage. She doesn't say, Link, help Pyrrha. She doesn't say, Link, help me. Even her saying, Link, help me would have been... I think, like, if she had said, Link, help me, and then it had panned to Pyrrha or something, then you'd be like, okay, maybe I'll help her out if I go over here, rather than, like you must find me, and then I'm not going to talk to you whenever you find me, and I'm just going... It's a really weird phrase, and it's I can't think... Can you interpret that?
I do with spoilers, though.
Okay. If you... Does it make grammatical sense? Because it's
Yes, it does.
Okay, because it's kind of tearing my brain up.
Yes, it makes grammatical sense.
Even if... Like, there's that spoiler that I think I know, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. But even if I'm right about that, it doesn't seem to make sense to me. So, like, even if she said something like, Link, you must learn what happened, right? Because it is a game about, like, looking at the past, time travel, that sort of thing, right? Then you're like, okay, Zelda wants me to learn what happened to Hyrule. Or if she said, you know what would be amazing? Link, figure out what's going on in Hyrule. And then it pans to Pyrrha. And Pyrrha's like, hurry, find Zelda. And then you run up to the captain. He's like, oh, go to Pyrrha. And Pyrrha's like, okay, we can't find Zelda. Let's do what she said. Let's figure out what's going on.
Link, you must save us. Would be a more poetic way to put it.
Yeah. Or you must help us, or you must figure out what's going on.
I don't like to figure out what's going on. Just as a story.
Well, I mean, just like, there's this whole cataclysm, right?
Yeah.
And that is your goal, is to figure out the cataclysm. The upheaval, sorry.
Yeah.
So, what if she said, like, Link, you must investigate the upheaval with Pyrrha's aid. Woo. Like, she had time to speak, and she chose... If her words make sense in retrospect, let's say.
Yeah.
That still makes them pretty useless to Link in the moment. Like, is there any point? Is there any point before Link figures out what those words mean that those words will make his job easier or will put him on the right path? Like, Link, you must find me. Oh, no. I was thinking I wouldn't look for you. I was thinking I'd just have a great time with my new goat buddy, and then I'd just hang out in Hatno Village for the rest of my life. What was the...
Alright, in retrospect, it's a pretty useless statement.
Like, what path did that put him on that helped Zelda's plans get any further? Right?
Yeah, it's a pretty useless statement.
Like, Link, talk to Pyrrha. You're like, okay, that's something. Or, yeah, I don't know. It seemed, and I looked up the Japanese version, and I couldn't find a transliteration of it.
Yeah, I tried that too.
But
did you turn your game into Japanese mode and then take the subtitles of that area and then directly translate?
No. Did you?
I haven't.
Okay.
That seemed like a lot of effort. So.
Well, you could probably just look up Japanese subtitles on YouTube or something. But the way she speaks in the Japanese one is more like in an anime when they say something like, when the girl goes, I had such a good time with you. And she's this sort of mystical, like, what do you call that? You're forcing your breath out sort of voice? Breathy, I guess. That they do when it's like the Pixie Dream Girl sort of, the Japanese equivalent,
okay.
where there's sparkles around them and they say, I love you so much. And or it's like, or they're remembering their dead mother. And she's like, oh, you're having such a good time there, aren't you? Don't you want supper? Or whatever it might be. It's sort of more in that tone, which I have no idea what to take from that. Like,
well, so something actually on that note, back to figuring out time travel wabbly stuff, is both Ganondorf and the Goatman speak like geezers in the Japanese version.
Oh.
Like not old men, but they speak traditional Japanese instead of modern. So they speak what sounds like imperial nobles at a Renaissance fair.
That's kind of fun.
So both Ganondorf. Yeah.
So
it actually makes you know, if you're playing in the Japanese, you know that these guys are from an older time, or they're more aristocrat.
Wouldn't Ganondorf be way older than Goatman though? Like, I'm actually Skyward Sword is the first game in the timeline.
Yeah.
And it either happens way before everything else, or Rauru is the king from Skyward Sword in a different light, I guess. Like, is it a retcon and that was Skyward Sword now?
No.
Because, no, he didn't know anything about... Ganon wasn't even the incarnation of Rage back then or whatever. He was...
Yeah, no, Ganon is another reincarnation of Ganon, I'm pretty certain. It's just
it's the same Ganon.
Yeah.
He's always the same guy.
Yeah. It's just a very powerful one.
But what I mean is, I think that Raru's time when he founded Hyrule has to be after every other game in this series.
I think so, actually.
Otherwise, he is the king from Skyward Sword, because that was... Well, no, okay, what it could be, but it'd be weird, is Rauru founds Hyrule, Skyward Sword happens, and then Rauru fights Ganondorf, and then the rest of the games happen. But that would mean there was like 6 generations of people or something where Rauru was just sort of hiding behind the throne while the new king was on the throne. And
could be.
And where did the goo goats come from? Is there planets with goo goats?
They came from the sky.
Is there a goo goat planet?
I don't know. And one other thing, though, that we talked about where I said Link and Zelda are item.
Yeah.
You said no.
Yeah.
So apparently in the first game, the translation stuff actually did ruin this. But so it's really subtle, and some people disagree with it. But all the quest entries are actually Link saying I. It's just Japanese don't actually have I in their vocabulary, or they don't use it.
Right.
But so all of those entries are actually Link's writing. So all the quests are Link's writing.
Huh.
And one of the things that happens, I can't remember for which quest it is, but Link's basically saying in the first game, like looking for the pictures of Zelda, or at one point, or in one of the journal entries, it's, I want to look on the beauty of Zelda again.
Yeah, but that, I mean, platonically, I'm sure that if you translated it from the original Japanese, it would say, I want to look on the beauty of Zelda again, platonically.
The side I was looking at was the original translation. It was
Right, but they forgot to translate platonically. There is actually a really badly written quest log in Tears of the Kingdom where you just without going into too many spoilers, something happens, and then another thing happens immediately that you have to deal with.
Yeah. And
the quest entry says, the thing that just happened is very important, but you can't deal with that right now. And it's like, because the way it happened, you weren't sure if it was important or not.
Yeah.
But then the quest entry is like, it's very important, but you have other things to worry about right now.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you keep piling up stress on me like this? Like, not only do you have one thing to worry about, you have so many that you can't even address them. You have to deal with the other stressful thing.
I wonder if I partly benefit. I mean, my mindset's definitely different than you, but also when I play games, like, they have hidden lore, they have all these books, like, there's so much reading to do, and I read the first word and the last word, then press next.
Well, I think, you see, like, you were saying you didn't feel the hurry, hurry, hurry.
Yeah.
And that's why I screenshotted every single dialogue, because they say it constantly. And I think I might be the only person that has played Tears of the Kingdom that has read all the dialogue.
Yeah, as I said, I read the first word and the last word, and then I click next.
I'm the only person with basic reading comprehension, and that's why it's bothering me.
I'm not playing this game to read a book. I'm playing to play a game. So if you're putting reading in, I'm going to ignore it.
The other thing I wonder, if they got rid of the voice acting, Link, you must find me.
Link, you must find me.
Does that become... Like, the voice actress, she sounds like it's an urgent thing in the English version.
Yeah.
Like, hurry, hurry, hurry. But I was also thinking about that. Let's say someone's been, I don't know, kidnapped. And they say, you must find me, and then hang up the phone. And they sound super desperate.
Yeah.
And so you can go to the police and you can go through all the proper channels and put out a wide search net.
Yeah.
Or you can just start running down the road like crazy in a random direction and hope you find them.
Yeah.
And running down the road in a random direction might feel better, but it's going to...
Leave you tired, and they're probably in
You're not
Siberia, and you're just running down your neighborhood. And
You're not going to find them. Like, it's much more effective to phone the police and get the whole wide search net.
Yeah.
And if...
Unless you have a very specific set of skills.
Well, if they're in a super desperate situation where they need your help in like the next 5 seconds, and running out the road for 5 seconds doesn't find them, then they're probably dead. And you shouldn't, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy levels hurrying at that point.
Yeah.
Either they're okay enough that you can go through the proper channels to try to find them, even if the proper channels are your shady black market thing and getting your guns cleaned and everything. Like, even the guy with a particular set of skills, as you say, he could run it down the road, or he could make sure he's got his weapons, he could call his contacts, there's still a set of procedures he should go through.
Yeah.
And so you have to assume that either you're too late and they're dead, or you can afford to take your time to do it right.
Yeah.
I think. Unless you can physically see them pinned under a branch that you can run over and pick up, right?
Yeah.
So...
Yep, Zelda's actually dead. You just find her under a boulder.
So, I'm not sure if any of the writing in Tears of the Kingdom is actually bad. I think it might be, instead, that it requires you to act like a sensible human being in order to properly respond to the situation. And that might seem, well, that's fine. But so many games don't. I think might be... Well, no, there's 3 parts to it. A lot of games, you have to just rush as fast as possible. Or they act as if you do. But there's so many things in Tears of the Kingdom where it's like, okay, there's an invading army coming. Sort of, being vague again. Gather supplies, set up defenses, figure out what you can, and then we'll double check the defense. There's not like all right, run onto the front line, start fighting like in Dragon Age or something, right? It's actually get prepared, get some sleep, get ready for the invasion. And it requires you to, be very adult, actually, and put things like, okay, I'll deal with that when it comes, I'll get ready for it, I'll respond properly.
Yeah.
It's sort of... It's very exclusionary to people with like, mental health problems.
Yeah, well, so I said this before, but, like, from what Hyrule looks like, it looks like they're dealing with the problems, but they need a little bit more help. And Link can provide that, but they're doing the best, and they've been surviving for the whole time you've been gone. So,
well, no one seems to. Of everyone in Hyrule, right?
No.
Including Link himself, I am the only one panicking. Not Link, me. Everyone else is like, hey, can you help me pick up all these plushies I've dropped on the ground? And like, oh, can you fix this bridge for me? And can you help me put up this sign? Can you?
Oh, this thing happened. That's such a shame. Oh, well, if anyone could help me, that'd be really nice. But you know what? I can live the rest of my life without that problem being fixed. Then Link's, here you go. And we're like, oh, that's great. Thank you.
No, they're not even passive about it. Like,
Well, I wasn't saying...
they're not even like passive aggressive about it.
I wasn't trying to be passive aggressive. More like, oh, what a shame. Oh, well.
No, they're not even like that though. Like, I still see that as... I don't think you can say, what a shame, oh well. I don't know if that's a statement that can be said with honesty. It's either a shame or it's not. And you accept it or not. So you say, that's a shame. That doesn't mean anyone has to say, I'll solve it for me. You can just say, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Or you can say, oh well. Like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
But that's a shame, oh well, is kind of a contradictory statement, I think. And that's why I consider it passive-aggressive, because you're essentially saying, oh, I don't care. But no, I really, I don't.
Alright, well, that's just the language problem. What I was trying to get at is they say, this thing's broken, and then they don't really seem to care. They just observe that it's affected their life,
But then they do care if it's affected their life. So I don't think it is just a language thing. I think this is a very, very important aspect that is lost somewhat. I think you have to care that your thing is broken, but that doesn't mean you say, oh well.
Yeah, I'm saying there was no oh well. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's just the oh well is a mentally society. I don't know, a behavior that I've learned to that. I don't know. It's probably not good behavior, but it's a learned behavior.
So let's say.
And I put that learned behavior into my example. Yeah.
So let's say your cart breaks, right? You go, man, my cart's broken, right? You stop there.
Yeah.
And Link comes up and he fixes it. You weren't going, oh, well, I'll just get on with my life. You're going, my cart's broken and that sucks. But it's not anyone's responsibility to fix that cart for me. It's no one's responsibility. I am just going to fully feel the emotion of my cart being broken. I'm just going to live with it. I'm just going to feel that. I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm just going to be in pain. It's not that I'm tough and I can put that aside. It's no, I will be in agony like a little toddler potentially. I mean, that might be a bit far, but you know, but that toddler agony actually tends to happen from when you're not feeling pain until it finally catches up with you and you're hit by everything at once. Yeah. But instead you say, no, this does suck. Things do suck in your life and they do hurt. And so you go, oh, that sucks. My cart's broken. I was going to use that. But you don't go to every person in your life saying, my cart broke, it sucks, because when you're doing that, you know, if you talk to your friend, just to get it off your chest, you're like, oh, it really bums me out that my cart broke. You're organizing your thoughts, right? You go to everyone and say that. You're looking for pity or someone to fix your cart.
Yeah.
Like, my friend, and this, well, it's tricky. Maybe it's not related. We'll see. Friend had a job, this was years and years ago, and very stressful job for him. Every time we hung out, he spent almost the entire time complaining about how tired he was and how much his job sucked. It made spending time with him really not fun. Because I wanted to spend time with him, not to hear about how much he hated his job. And I wonder, like, maybe he needed to vent to someone, right? But I think venting is to organize your thoughts, and maybe at some point you need to say, I need to quit this job.
Yeah.
And maybe that should have been my job as a friend, being like, look, I can't stand you venting about this all the time. Quit your job, or find a way to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Or just shut up and hang out with me or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's related or not. Is that a non-acceptance of... Because if you accept your job sucks, maybe then you sit there and you go, oh, my job sucks. Maybe my job sucks and I don't like this and I need to get out of here. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case or not. But so maybe that venting constantly is good and that's what you need to survive. But maybe it's not and you need to stop and look at your life and...
It keeps you going, but it doesn't fix the solution.
Yeah, and it brings down... Well, that's the question. Should it have brought down the... Well, it was detracting from the time that we were spent together because we weren't doing the things I wanted to be doing. It was just him talking about how he hated his job every time. So I got that the first time. Yeah. I have been informed of the situation.
Be a bit like Ashok Vidal from The Son of the Black Sword. Did you read that book?
Yep.
Yeah, but he said, I have been informed. And then he's just so blunt.
So the person in that situation doesn't care about letting me know about a situation. They want to get...
They're treading water looking for something to grab onto.
But they want to... What are they doing?
They're treading water, quite literally. It's keeping them afloat.
Well, why? What are they doing? Why is that treading water? Why is it keeping them afloat to bring me down? Why does that make them feel better? And
Their goal is not to bring you down.
yeah, so what is their goal?
Maybe their soul is crying out for help there, and you should just said, quit this job.
Well, it sounds like they're asking me to fix their problems, right? Like, if they're constantly telling you that without...
They could be asking for help. They're looking for affirmation of... I mean, there's a lot of different things. It's hard to know a person's intention, but from what I understand, there's basically... So they could be farming sympathy.
Yeah.
And people do that.
They could be wanting me to tell them to quit their job.
Yeah, or they could be looking for affirmation to give them permission to do it because they...
But again, that's not healthy either, right? Like,
no, that's not a direct way to do it, but...
That might be what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in theory, they should be talking to their friends to sort their thoughts out.
Yeah.
And then make the decision for themselves.
Yeah, but...
Not have their friend give them permission to quit or something like that.
Not everyone thinks perfectly.
No one does. And even the best people don't think clearly most of the time. But I think... But that's why I just pointed out that discrepancy. It's nothing against you. It just the... oh, that sucks so well. It's that there's a very important... If we teach people... No. Feel pain.
So, but there is actually discrepancy in language. So, when I say, oh well, it's the same thing as me saying praise Buddha or God's will.
These things happen, never mind.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, you know yourself, right? So,
Yeah.
So use it that way. Don't use it as a dismissal, I guess would be the...
Yes.
Yeah. Be very careful there. Not to use it as a dismissal. And even then, I wonder... It's very easy to be enlightened and be like, praise Buddha, I'm like, right? Like, rather, like, the techniques we use to run from pain are so magnificently complex and...
Yeah, well, so that was the thing...
Like, that's the whole enlightenment movement in my mind.
To run from pain?
It's to create this scheme that makes you not have to confront the pain in your life. It's to be, I'm enlightened and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm doing all this hard work and I'm meditating. And it's just this huge, elaborate cathedral that you've built to hide from reality. And by saying, oh, I'm so enlightened, look at me.
Well, it's funny.
Like, it's easier. I have it written down right here, actually, in this, under the subtitle, I hate spiritual people. Rawr! It's easier to fail at enlightenment than to clean your room. Like, people, they're like, I'm going to try to seek enlightenment, sit on this mountain. I won't get there, but I'll try. It's like, no, just clean your room. You know,
So
sit down, scrub the floor of the bathroom. Make yourself dinner. Yeah.
with I finished How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
And more I think you're right that it's a very twisted view of the world I have.
Well, then it's a great book to read.
But
Or me and Dan Carnegie are wrong, obviously.
I think I find a lot of things right in that. But I do think... So what I found that was missing, and it's the same thing that can be missing with saying praise Buddha, that whole thing, is the genuineness of it. And that's, I think, why I thought that people were, like, they read his book but they didn't pay attention, is I think that the genuine is actually, like, if anything is to be taken from Dan Carney's book...
Act genuinely.
Yes.
But that doesn't... Here's the problem I guess I have, if thinking in that context. You can't teach someone to be genuine.
Yeah.
So when he says, do this but do it genuinely, that's impossible. What you have to do instead is say, be a genuine person, and whatever arises from that as a result is the best possible thing.
Yeah, so, but...
Which is, seek the truth.
Yeah, I think part of that book with the Be Genuine is he found that genuine people got results, and so he was very analytical with that book. Like, it's a very, this work, so...
But I don't know... Like, obviously, there was a value in it to you, right?
Yeah.
And it hopefully cleared up some schemas in your head that you were looking at it in a different sense. And hopefully it didn't just... You were right and now you're wrong or something. but hopefully you pointed out and you're like, oh, wait, that's that. There's an XKCD. I don't remember how he did the calculation. And it's just kind of based on wild guessing. But he talked about how there's, like, you know, let's say 10,000 things every person knows.
Yeah.
Like, well, you don't know the Rick Roll song? Everyone knows the Rick Roll song. Oh, you don't know that when people say thank you, they're saying it because it's a sign I was thinking, instead of saying thank you, right? Maybe we should go back to you have my thanks. Or something like that, because thank you becomes this sort of abstract concept rather than an actual, like, I owe you. Or I am in your debt. I am grateful for what you have done. Because thank you. But you're actually saying you have my thanks, right? You are not, I thank you, at the very least. Teach kids to say I thank you rather than thank you. I'm not saying this is the solution. It's just, it's so isolated from it. Thank you becomes a phrase that doesn't really make sense except as that's what you do when someone does something nice and your parents tell you to do it.
Yeah.
So everyone knows that thank you means I thank you for what you have done for me. Or you have my thanks, right? It's a blessing, essentially. But he said, at the rate you learn, in the XKCD comic, he said, but you learn something that everyone knows roughly, X times per week, let's say.
Yeah.
Or per month. Or your odds of running into one are this percentage, something like that. Which means that you won't know everything everyone knows until you're roughly like 32 or something. You'll run into something until you're 32 that someone's like, what? You don't know? Everyone knows about that.
Yeah.
Which is a very exciting concept, actually, because there's this thing that's so great, everyone knows about it. And right now, you and me both, we haven't run into them yet. And we're like, what? That was a thing this whole time? Like, for me, it was Breath of the Wild, actually. It was like this game had been out for like 5 years, and I was just sitting there like, oh yeah, Zelda. I'm not a Zelda fan. And then I saw you play, and I was like, that looks kind of interesting. Can I try it for a bit? You're like, yeah. And I sat down. This is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's like, how has no one been talking about this? Everyone was talking about it. They were? Yeah. Oh.
Yes. Yeah, it was the game of the year when it came out, and people were obsessed with it.
But it's just, this is crazy little indie game I found called Breath of the Wild, and I wish people were talking about this, because this game needs more recognition. You actually see that sometimes on, it's like a lot of, it's 14 to 16, they start using Reddit and YouTube and whatnot, and they feel like they're a big kid because they're talking online, and they have no idea how absolutely childish they seem.
Yeah.
You see it a lot in the political compass memes where they show my political evolution, and then you see this like zigzag thing, and they're like, that's a post? You're just saying that I'm a kid with mood swings, basically. Like, you can guess someone's age based on those, if they make one of those posts in the first place. Yeah. People say, let me guess, you're 14? And like, no, I'm 13. So yeah, we can tell. But they will go to like a Pink Floyd, like Dark Side of the Moon song, and they'll be like, crazy band, wish people knew about this music. Like, amazing band, wish people knew about this music. Like, yeah, no. Everyone knows about Pink Floyd. Everyone knows about Queen. They're not some niche band that you've discovered.
Yeah.
But the thing that XKCD, the takeaway, which I agree with, you should not look down on people for these discoveries. No. This is your chance to be the person that shows someone something that is so amazing everyone else knows about it.
Yeah.
You should be excited for yourself and for them whenever you come across this. So when they say like, oh man, this Pink Floyd, kids my age, they don't know about this. This is like, nobody knows about this. And you're like, if you like this, check out Queen. Check out this album. Check out this album by Pink Floyd. Check out this. This is who influenced them. Check these guys out. It's your chance to be like, I'm going to blow your mind. This is going to be awesome. And don't do it in a dismissive way. Like, never heard of Michael Jackson then, I guess? Like, no. You take that. So if you learn that thank you is, if used right and not just kind of forced down, then that's awesome.
But Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
There's the second thing you didn't cover yet.
Well, it's all tied together, actually, so it works in either direction. So, yeah, I'll wrap up the spiritual thing, because it also is. The whole Buddhism, not real Buddhism, but like Neo-Buddhism, maybe. Or maybe real Buddhism.
Just going to dismiss a whole massive religion.
It's a really weird religion. The whole point is that you find people, peasants, and you're a prince, and you tell them, life is suffering, let me educate you. And they go, oh really? Tell me about this eightfold path of suffering then. I had no idea. Prince, who had never seen an old person before in his life. But sometimes, you've got to be outside to see what's going on again. No, I think Buddhism, like, it is actually about, like, life is suffering. That's their whole point to an extent. Yeah. But they run, right? Like, Buddhists run from pain. They don't feel it. They say, life is suffering, therefore give up all attachments and the pain will go away. They don't instead say, I'm going to stand here in the pain and I am going to let it burn through me. They instead say, I'm going to, everything I have brings me pain, so I'm going to chuck it all away so I have no, like, you kind of make your world smaller in a way, because you curl up smaller and smaller and smaller until nothing affects you. And then you're safe because there's no pain. Like, having friends means that friends will betray you, friends will be mean to you. they'll cut ties, they'll say rude things. It hurts, and so you get rid of all your friends, and you never have that problem. And so I'm not sure, but I don't know enough about Buddhism to fully dismiss it. But let's say the Richard Bach type stuff that maybe I'll have to reread Jonathan Livingston Seagull or something. But I was trying to figure out the other day the value of that book, and I can't. What's the lesson from that book? Like, if you try really hard, then you can have superpowers and change the world. Because, like I said on the previous podcast, it turns out that you can't force things to happen. That'll just lead to pain, and I know that very well. And you can't just hope good things will happen, because that also doesn't work. But you can ask for things. Like the Wiccans of all people got it right over everyone else. Like the good vibrations, the secret, right?
Some of the Wiccans.
But the problem with
the Druids got it right, actually. It's a better statement than the Wiccans got it right.
The problem with the secret, I guess, is that you think, I've got to write my 20 lines a day. Go, go, go. I've got it, right? And that becomes force the world to change. And that feels very much to me like Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the same sort of thing of, you've got to believe in something so hard it becomes real, which isn't the same as saying, can I have this? Right? One is like, I'm trying to will this into being and I'm going to hurt myself when it doesn't ever occur. And then one is just, can I have this? And then you go about your day. And if it happens, it happens. And then waiting for stuff to happen, nothing good will ever happen to you. I mean, it will occasionally, but if you're just sitting around waiting for a sign, it's not going to come.
The play Waiting for Godot, I wonder if you should read that or not. It's like basically your nightmare scenario. There's two men in a house and they're waiting for a third guy to show up, Godot. And the whole play is about them waiting for him and he never shows up. And they basically both, I think they, like, there's a lot of philosophical commentary, but they both basically go insane waiting for him to show up. And the whole thing is, like, they could have just left the house. They didn't have to wait for him.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole story, is you can't wait for Godot. You can't wait for him.
Yeah. Well, that's a really... Wildermyth. Douglas Austin, the writer for it?
Yeah.
He's a genius. Like, some of these stories had me, like, tearing up. Like,
just the little stories?
Just these little, like, procedurally generated stories, right? Like, okay, so there's one where you're going through this misty woods and you see this colossus stride through the woods. And it's perfectly silent, but it's like 200 feet tall. Yeah. And it's just going through the woods. And everywhere it steps, there's this green light. But it doesn't even leave a mark except for the light. So all the force of this being is just this gentle light. Yeah. And it walks along. And you and the other person, two of your party members see it. And they're like, should we go back for the third person or should we chase after it? And this is the choice. And I don't know what happens, but if you stay and wait for the third person, probably none of you see it, right? Yeah. And that third, or maybe if you stay and look for the third person to go see it, they're already watching it, and now you two don't get to see it, and they see this thing, right?
That's very Wildermyth, yeah.
I don't know if that's what happens, but that would make sense to me. But
I don't know either. That's why I said that would be very Wildermyth.
Yeah, and so I was like, I'm just going to chase after this thing. Yeah. Because it's the same with the trolley problem, right? That people always say that, you should pull it to kill the one person and save the five. But I disagree, because those five people made the choice to be there when they shouldn't be, whereas the one person is where they should be, right?
I mean, I wrote a whole exam on that thing you just said.
And I don't care. Like, people say, well, you just don't want to choose to kill someone, but you're choosing either way. That's not my concern. My concern is actually not that there's a burden on me. It's that I am the one deciding who lives and dies based on incomplete information. Maybe the five people on the track are railway workers who know exactly when to step off, and I've just condemned a man to death because there's five people that know what they're doing, and there's one person that doesn't. Yeah. I don't know the situation. My interference doesn't... There is never a situation in a void where I know the full variables of a situation. Yes. And so with this Colossus, going back and looking for the third party member, who might already be watching it, means that you never see it, right? Yeah. And so I think that's a really interesting dilemma the game gives you, and I'm sure that the results are interesting. There's another story. You find... Now, this is actually, Brandon Sanderson made this a power in his Mistborn series, and it's a power that you use to break people's minds. But this is a magical item in this game, where there is a pool that shows you the past of what could have been. Yeah. So you look at it shows you your biggest regret, and then it makes you do the thing that you wish you had done instead, and then it shows you how your entire life plays out from that point. Yeah. And so the character goes to that pool, and she looks in and she sees a man and she realizes it's her brother, who she hasn't thought about for so long she's forgotten she had a brother, because they were both very young. And her brother says, I want to go out for adventure. And she says, no, don't go. And he says, no, I want to go out and be an adventurer. And she's like, okay, fine. And he leaves and he never comes home again.
Yeah.
And so her biggest regret is that she didn't try harder to stop him from going out and being an adventurer. And so she looks into the pool, and it shows her what would have happened if she'd told him to stay. And so it shows her like she's begging him, and finally he's like, okay, I'll stay. And they both stay for the rest of their lives in the village, and they never go out and explore. And they always wonder, could we have been more? Could we have done better? Could we have been people that actually did something with our lives?
Yeah.
And the point there is that, yeah, her brother died. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he went off and he's just some sultan somewhere.
Yeah.
But she never got to see him again. But he took a chance. And that's what's more important. It's you know, it's not worth cutting yourself off the knees and never doing anything. You know, better to die standing than live on your knees, right?
Yeah.
They tried. And the brother, let's say the brother failed. Let's say he died.
Yeah.
He was eaten by wolves. But he tried. And she tried too, because she wasn't bound to him. And she became the hero that saved the world in my game, basically, right? And, I mean, gee, this dude's a good writer.
Yeah.
How the procedural generation works, I think, is that the stories have a structure, but then the dialogue options are based on their personality.
Yes.
Which means he has to write like 6 dialogue options for every...
More than 6. There's a lot more personalities.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. There's about 18 personalities.
They must double them up at some
Yeah,
point.
they do, but...
Yeah, it's...
And if you go into the character creation, which you can actually like customize every aspect of a character.
Yeah.
And there's like over 18 different personality traits to throw together. So it probably hooks onto a few, but still.
Yeah, it's... Like, that's not a...
And it also changes based on the choices you make. Like if it's a rival you're with, or if it's your friend, or if it's the romantic partner.
You know, people talk about, oh, this is such a good story, this is such a good story. Like, Dark Souls has this interesting lore, or you look at the Final Fantasy games, they have these epic stories, these epic quests you go on. And he writes these comic book strips that are like 4 pages long, where it seems very much like the kind of game it would be full of, I don't know, almost like SJW type platitudes.
Yeah.
Like, and then I learned that it's okay if someone's gay type. Like, it kind of feels like that sort of game in a lot of ways. I don't know why. Maybe just the art style.
Could be.
I don't know what it is, but it has this sort of vibe. Or like if you complain the wrong way on their... It could be the kind of people that play it. Like I have seen a lot of people that are like that do play it. But the stories themselves... What it is, right? The problem with a lot of modern storytelling is it has these training wheels on. And it's all padded and dulled so it doesn't hurt you.
Yeah.
But this guy, he's like just going in there with a knife and stabbing you in the heart. And he's like, you will learn from this. Or
Yeah, well, so you've completed the first campaign?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I've done 3 campaigns, I think.
Did you do the randomly generated campaigns or the actual, like, each different story?
I did the first campaign and then 2 randomly generated ones.
Okay. Yeah, first campaign has an interesting story. The random campaigns are impressive how coherent they are. His robot story... So it's one of the written stories, full campaign. That one, that is amazingly written as well. His robot story.
Yeah, I'm not even talking like the entire campaign, just like the little snippets.
Yeah, like there's little stories, but also the whole campaign. Like the robot story, it's an amazing story. It's really well written. It's one of my favorite game stories I've come across.
Wow.
Actually, that robot campaign.
Because I find...
Like it has just elements that like you... want to be in other video games for their story if they're doing storytelling that just usually aren't there.
Wow.
And I'm saying that there's reading, and that's the thing. So Smith requires reading. There's like no voice acting.
Yeah.
And you probably know this to an extent, but I really don't read in video games. But I really like Wildermyth, and I actually read its stories.
Wow.
And part of it is because it's done in comic book form, and I can much easily read comic books because I get pictures for context, and the context lets me read the story.
And it's like single sentences. It's not this giant block of text.
Yes.
And it's a very nice layout the way they do it. They sort of slide stuff in as it's relevant.
And also it gives you the feeling that's your own tale, that very much the RimWorld little people, like it's each one, like each of these characters have their own names, they each do these different things. You don't get to directly control what they do, but you have the influence slightly on it. And
Well, sort of. That's what I like about it, but they were almost too kind in the customizability to the point where you can, like when you recruit a character, you can actually choose every last detail about them, and between, like in the breaks that last 10 years, you can basically buy any item for the character and just say, oh yeah, this is a better version of the water bow. It's not this mystic item he found after going on this quest. It's just like, oh yeah, I'll just spend 5 legacy points and now I have the best item in the game.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I don't like. You can ignore it.
Yeah.
Like the crafting system, you can just ignore it. But it is there.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things, I went onto Reddit and I said, this crafting system, it kind of bothers me with the rest of the game because the game is all about making these decisions and these outcomes and living with them and seeing this interesting world. And then you have this crafting system that lets you basically dictate exactly what your loadout is.
Yeah.
And there's a comment format. I've seen it for a couple of years now, I guess. But top comment was something like, tell me you play on very easy without telling me you play on very easy. I'm playing on the hardest difficulty on Iron Man mode. Okay?
Yeah.
It's just I'm like moderately competent at tactics. It doesn't actually, you don't have to be that good at tactics for this game to be very easy because the power combinations you can make in this game are completely broken.
Yeah.
Which is very fun.
Yes.
But you can have, like I have a build, my fighter can make fire.
Yeah.
My wizard, if he interfuses with fire, the fire never goes out.
Mm-hmm.
And then my archer, if she's standing by fire, she shoots fire arrows.
Yeah.
Which leave fire wherever they land. And then my wizard, if he's interfused with fire and an archer standing next to it, he can make them shoot an extra time on their turn.
Yeah.
And my archer is a hero, which means they shoot 2 to 3 times in a turn, and her bow, every time she gets a crit, she gets to shoot again. So I can shoot like 5 times in a turn, leaving fire everywhere. It's very cool.
Yeah.
But it's not a hard game.
It makes me think of Baldur's Gate. I was like you, I went on the internet.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure
not even
something
once.
out about it. And there's this boss arena.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is a nearly impossible arena. You need like this massive build. You need all these items. You need to have like, just be really prepared for us. What? And my thoughts, you're a journalist, so you're probably playing on journalist mode. Yeah. I'm playing on normal difficulty because I just don't care to make the game take 20 years by playing on hardest difficulty. But it's just like...
Did you see Final Fantasy 16 added a bunch of journalism rings?
Yeah,
and then journalists were complaining that the game was too easy. And they're like, it's like, you are using items that are meant to make the game easy.
Yeah. I was just like, my build in Baldur's Gate is to the point where Magic Missile is a deadly spell which can murder a boss in 2 turns. Like, I cast Magic Missile twice, and it takes out a boss. Like, this game isn't hard. Why are you calling this a nearly impossible boss fight?
Yeah, I think...
Like, to further that, my friends and I are playing on the hardest difficulty, and one of them, he's the only guy who hasn't really played the game the whole way through before, so he has a pretty normal build. But the 3 of us are literally... What's the most broken build of this one class I'm playing that I can pick and go and seek out the specific items to grab to make this build stronger?
Now that said, if you go out of your way to make a broken build,
yeah,
and the game feels broken, that is your own fault.
Yes.
To an extent. Like, obviously the developers should try to account for it, but they can't account for everything. And so what I'm doing in Wildermyth is I've decided I just won't craft.
Yeah.
And I'm having a great time. Way better than my first 2 times. It's like, I just won't craft, and it feels way better. And I'm also... I think that even though everyone on the Reddit was basically downvoting me and calling me names, right?
Yeah.
This time around, it feels like they really changed the balance. I have way less crafting items. I'm not even playing on hardest right now. But I have way less crafting items. The enemies seem to get stronger faster. And the campaign layout feels better. And it could also be, this is the biggest weakness of that kind of game. The first 2 times I played... It just generated in a way that gave me too much stuff, and now I'm playing the way it's meant to be played.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunateness of randomness.
Well, that's the unfortunate of your experience with Undertale.
Yeah, I was getting constant random encounters. And now there is ways you can fix that. Like, you can say, okay, no random encounters. Or you can say random encounter cap, which I believe Undertale has, so I'm not really sure what happened to me.
Game might have been bugged.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was actually one of the funny things I see. The old school Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 players complaining about Baldur's Gate 3 is there's no random encounters.
At least it's not the Null Fortress again, where they spawn outside of your vision range. It's just endless.
Well, I was thinking about my experience in the Cobalt Mine, where there's kobolds that shoot fire arrows at you, Cobalt Commandos.
Cobalt, yeah.
And, the Cobalt Commandos. And so, alright, I need to take a long rest. So, I'm in the mine zone. I take a long rest. I get ambushed. I fight them off, get a little bit hurt. Try to take another rest. Get attacked. Fight them off. Try to take another rest. Okay, this isn't working. I leave the mine.
And then they ambush you at that bridge.
No, I leave the mine.
Yeah.
I take a rest outside the mine. They don't attack me. I go back into the mine, and new round encounter Kobold commandos have spawned inside it, and they shoot my mage, my thief mage, with like a bunch of fire arrows, and she nearly dies. And I have to like, what's the point of taking that long rest?
So, Never Knows Best did a video on the entire Final Fantasy mainline series recently,
Yeah.
which was really eye-opening. I think he caught on to why I don't like JRPGs. He pointed out that the first 2 Final Fantasy games don't have auto attack, which means if you attack someone with 3 party members,
Yeah.
and the first party member kills them, the other 2 don't get to attack that turn.
Yeah.
And now basically every JRPG since Final Fantasy III has changed that to where if you attack the first creature and they die, your characters attack the second creature instead.
Yeah.
Which means all you have to do is spam the attack button on the
Yeah.
first creature and then you win the fight. But it actually, so it's this quality of life feature. But the first 2 games are way harder and way more tactical in every single fight.
Yeah.
Because you have to decide, okay, will he kill this or will he not? And if that is too much of a risk, should I use one of my very rare spells, waste my mana, doing an area of effect attack instead, just in case? And it suddenly opens up this whole world of tactics. So,
So on that, Slay the Spire.
okay.
You know the robot. So he has some of the most random builds in the game. Like his lightning randomly
Yeah.
strikes enemies. So there was literally a fight where there's 3 enemies. And it's, alright, so I can use this ability and it will weaken this one enemy. And then if I'm lucky, my lightning will wipe out every enemy on the field. However, if I'm unlucky, I will die.
Because it won't kill anyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my other option is I specifically target the one enemy that's going to deal the most damage. I take him out.
And you accept the small damage from the
Yeah,
enemy.
the lightning won't take those 2 out.
Yeah, and so that's what the first 2 Final Fantasies were
yeah,
like.
'cause-
And they're very, very hard. And I have played Final Fantasy 1.
Mm.
And unfortunately, I didn't like it, not because I didn't even get a chance to view those good tactics, but because the UI is really annoying to navigate. Like, they really improved it over years. It's really annoying in the first game. So, that's... I don't know. Maybe someone will do a remake someday, like a real remake, not a remake that that adds in all the quality of life, that ruins the balance. But he pointed out that in Final Fantasy II, they added a feature where you don't level up in that game exactly. Your stats level up, and how they do it is through use. So if you attack a bunch, your attack stat goes up. If you get hit a bunch, your health stat goes up.
Yeah.
And so people say out the game, the most effective way to play is to find a weak enemy and then attack your own party members, because then they get XP gains and you get attack gains. And a lot of people say this game's really grindy, really annoying, and the leveling up system just ruins the fun of it because you have to keep attacking yourself. And if you go to TV Troops, they say Final Fantasy II had this crazy decision where the best way to play is to attack yourself. And he points out this game has hidden level scaling, which means that if you attack yourself, you make the game harder for yourself, which means you have to do the level scaling more. He said if you just play as it's intended to, you attack you only level up when you beat the enemies, and you only get your health up when you get hit. The game, you never have to grind at all, and the game runs smoothly. And so...
It's Skyrim. If you start Skyrim and you have healing and you have fire, and it's the range healing,
Yeah.
and so you have them in both hands, you find a rock that makes it so a bandit can't get to you, and you just bombard them with healing and fire, and you get them both to level 100.
Then congrats, you ruined the game for yourself, and the level scaling makes the world really dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But if you just play Skyrim, it's a really cool system. Mm-hmm. But that's the reason most games, I think, don't use it, because people will abuse it, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So what Never Knows Best pointed out, he said most people don't like Final Fantasy II because of this. But if they just played the game the way it was, if they just played the game rather than trying to get one over on it, it actually is a much better game. Which is kind of my experience with Tears of the Kingdom, actually, where if I had just done what the developer wanted, I didn't do this on purpose, but if I had just done what the developer wanted, like, I have barely felt the need to fast travel now. I said, okay, I'll fast travel and that'll fix it. Yeah. But just restarting it, I have barely felt the need to fast travel whatsoever. Yeah. But if you just trust the game, it works. And so what I'm getting with that is there's all this advice online about this is how you play Final Fantasy II and this is why it sucks. And it's wrong. It's all wrong, basically. Yeah. And so the advice online, it's just because a lot of people are saying it and everyone believes it doesn't mean it's true, I guess.
Yeah.
But with the spiritualism, it's like they say, okay, we've all fallen into hell, right? And we'll say, okay, fair enough, that makes sense. We're all in hell. We're suffering. And then this sort of, try really hard thing, but there's more to it than just that try really hard, which I don't like. There's also this aspect of try to make hell a better place. We'll dust a little. We'll put a nice shade over the pools of brimstone or something, instead of trying to climb out of hell. It feels like it's this stay in this milieu and this stew. It's an excuse to not just go and clean your room. It's like, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to make it so I don't care about the sadness of my life, instead of just fixing your life. It's the external versus internal thing that Jung talked about, right? That we talked about.
It's funny that you said the whole thing with online and the playing Final Fantasy wrong. Because I wonder if that's happened to an extent with spiritualism. Like, to an extent, because there can definitely be spiritualism and the East teachings or whatever, as we say at one point, that probably aren't the greatest for the normal person to take. Like, not everyone should be a Benedictine monk.
Yeah, or a Buddhist.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing that the Buddhists said was, don't meditate. Like, there's that famous story of he became eventually a Buddha, but he went... No, it wasn't him, sorry. He was the guy that rejected the guy. So I was thinking of a different story with this guy. But a guy came to this Zen Buddhist guy.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to be enlightened, but I've got my family and kids back home. What do I do? He said, go back to your family and kids.
Yeah.
and so a lot of these teachers, they did know, like, hey, no, this isn't for everyone. This is for, we are the worst dregs of society, and this is our only possible salvation. So we will do this. But you're living your life. Live your life. And a lot of Buddhists did think this way. They didn't consider themselves the enlightened, wise people in their ivory towers looking down and guiding society. They viewed it more the opposite way of, we're the lowest of the low, and this is the only salvation we have. Everyone else has got it figured out, and we're just down here suffering. And I don't know if that's why they made the Buddhist monks beg, but it was probably part of it. Just remind yourself that this is where
Be humble.
Yeah, but not just humble, but like remember that you are the lowest of the low in a sense, because that's why you're there. You're not there to be better, and that's why they didn't use their martial arts. That was not something they wanted to use in anything but a ritual, and they didn't allow their meditation to leave either. And there was 2 different guys that went out and shared it with the world.
Alan Watts?
No, like these were Buddhist monks.
Oh, okay.
Like Kung Fu, we watched the movie about him, Wooden Men.
Yeah.
With Jackie Chan. That's about a real guy.
Oh, okay.
Who goes out and shares Kung Fu with the rest of the world to fight back against the Chinese government.
Yeah.
And then the other guy, this was as the Buddhists were being destroyed during, I think it was the Maoist revolution possibly, and he taught meditation to everyone basically.
Uh-huh.
Because he didn't want it to be lost. It wasn't some revenge plan. It was more like, all our teachings are being lost, so I'm going to spread it as far as I can, basically. Yeah. So when I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, and I suddenly felt free after talking to Pyrrha, I was like, okay, yes, I can enjoy this. I'm so excited. Then I was hit by this lightning bolt from Satan that said, no, you're anxious now.
Yeah.
That was hard. That was like, what on earth is this feeling? And my response to it was, okay, I'll just keep playing. I'll just push through it. I'm just going to say, you know what? No, my mind's wrong. It's bad interject, right? You have these thoughts in your mind where there's a lot of voices in your head in a way. Like, they're not voices for me. They're feelings. But there's a lot of feelings that tell you this is how things are. This is, you like this, you don't like this, you don't like this, you like this. And depending on your life and how mentally healthy you are, a lot of them lie. Or a lot of them are other people. They're what other people they're not even what other people have expectations of you. They're what you think others' expectations of you are.
Yes.
I think we've talked about bad interjects before, but this one was, you shouldn't have fun with the game. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to listen to it, and I'm going to push through it. But it was hard. It was like, because I had to feel the pain, right? I had to feel this pain of like, there's a voice telling me to panic constantly. But I'm like, no, I want to go to the Shrine of Resurrection. I want to build I came up, when I left Hyrule Tower, I had made a little cart and put a wing on it. Mm. And so I could steer it as it went down the long path, because the wings let me steer it because it got a tiny bit of lift, and then I could steer it. And then I put a fan on it, and it actually, off hills, it would get a ramp and it could fly. And I was like, I made an airplane. This is so cool. I'm going to take my airplane to the Shrine of Resurrection. And that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. Screw you, voice in my head. I'm going to go to the Shrine of Resurrection because I'm really curious if it's still there. And I'm going to take my airplane across the plains. And That didn't really work out because I got distracted, but that's the goal of the game, right?
Yeah.
I got to the Shrine of Resurrection eventually, but I got there through a very different path. I was trying to figure out what that feeling was. And Teal Swan released a video basically at the exact same time that said something like, why do I feel angry or anxious when I'm happy or something like that? I was like, okay, perfect. So I watched that, and what she talked about was when people don't listen to your boundaries, you don't set boundaries.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing in some sense. So you tell people so first of all, what is anger? Anger is the feeling of powerlessness. Anger is this feeling that you can't change anything, and there's no matter what I do, nobody will listen to what I say. And she said, so when you feel completely powerless, your sort of base response is this sort of nihilistic void, and anger is a step above that to save you from that void. And because she's like not a spiritual, like this straw man spiritual people I'm angry at, because she's not one of them. She doesn't say you should let go of the anger and fall into the void. She says this void is death, basically. Like, this is horrible. The anger is you're moving up from it, and you need to keep moving up, because anger is a very bad place to be as well, but at least it's not that void. And she said, so what you need to do is actually take power. You need to set boundaries, right? So you need to say, okay, no, this anger is telling me there is something about this situation I don't like. And so I need to do something about that. I need to ask myself, why am I angry? Why do I feel powerless? What can I do to not feel powerless about the situation, basically?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're a kid and you say, I feel powerless, well, you don't say I feel powerless. You say, I don't want to do that. And then they say, when you have a place of your own, then you can do this, that sort of thing. Then you learn that nothing you say matters and that you're always powerless. So I had a friend who went to anger management when he was a little kid. I'm curious how those sessions go, and how a good session would go as well, because that might be two different things. Because I have a theory that counseling for kids involves telling the parents to shape up. Like, that's my theory, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if this kid has anger issues, that seems like the parents aren't listening to him, theoretically.
Yeah.
Unless he has, like, fetal alcohol syndrome or something, I guess. But then you're not really going to give counseling to fix that for the most part.
Have we had this conversation before, or am I just getting deja vu of deja vu?
I think you're just having deja vu?
Okay.
Yeah. So, this anger is this feeling of helplessness. And the kid learns that there's nothing they can do. And so they need to set a boundary, right?
Yeah.
And so the only way they can set a boundary is to say, okay, this person doesn't care about my suffering. This person doesn't care about my pain. So I'm going to do the only thing I can, which is they are telling me, you need to be happy no matter what I do to you, right? That's what they're telling me, essentially, right? Like, they're saying no to everything I ask for, everything I need. Yeah. They're saying, you need to be happy, little child, no matter what I do to you, right? So I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to set the only boundary I can by suffering. I will show them that I will not be happy despite everything they've done to me. Because when a person doesn't listen to your suffering, and they don't listen to you as a kid, they are saying, you need to be happy no matter what I do to you. And this is you see this kind of happened to me, actually, but it also happens to a lot of people where this happens, where the parent doesn't listen to the kid, and then the kid starts to suffer and gets super depressed and angry. And so then the parent tries to take the kid to therapy, not because, they care about the kid exactly, like maybe they do, but it's because it makes their life wrong to have a sad kid. And so they want to fix the kid rather than, wait, am I doing something that's making this kid unhappy? Yeah. So like, okay, I'll take this kid to therapy, and then the problem's solved. I don't have to deal with it, sort of thing, almost. And so that's where I hope with child therapy, where the therapist would be like, okay, your kid has anger issues. Are you listening to them? Yeah. I don't know if that happens, but I hope that's what happens. And so the kid says, no, I'm not going to be happy with everything you're doing to me. I'm going to suffer. The problem with that technique, which she pointed out very eloquently, I think, is that you are hoping that your suffering will change the mind of people who don't care about how you feel, who don't care if you suffer.
Drinking poison.
Yeah, it's resentment. This is exactly resentment.
Yeah.
It's these people aren't listening to me, and they expect me to be happy despite the fact that they're not listening to me. So I am going to take the only form of resistance I can, which is to not be happy. I had my best friend, he was saying how person he was very resentful of, still is very resentful of. And he said, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I get over it, then he gets away with it. Mm. And that's that exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's, he expected me to be happy no matter how much he bullied me, how much he tormented me. And if I'm happy now, I'll prove him right. And he just gets away with being this horrible person. Mm. But of course, you're not, your suffering isn't doing anything, because the person that doesn't care if you suffer doesn't care if you suffer.
Yeah.
But it's the only boundary you can build, because saying no, saying please don't, saying don't do this never worked.
Yeah.
And so the only boundary you can say is, well, look, your actions have consequences. That's the only thing I can do. My plan for a long time when I was like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 to 16, let's say, was just move away and never talk to anyone again. It's just like, I just want to slam in their face. They'll be like, hey, can I come over? I'm like, no, that'll show you. You'll learn that your actions have consequences. And divine retribution struck me down and said, no, you're going to deal with your problems. Which is interesting. And I was going to revel in the, what, you're surprised? But this is what you wanted. This is what you were pushing for this whole time. It's like, yeah, feed my soul. but the problem with that plan is it requires you to put yourself on hold, especially when you're a dependent kid, right?
Yeah.
But there isn't really a good option. Like, if you're a powerless kid, there's just sometimes not an option.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to suffer. But maybe at least the kid can realize that at least try to spend as little time as possible with whoever's making you suffer, friend, parent, teacher, whatever.
Yeah.
And don't try to get back at them with your own suffering, because they don't care. Yeah. They already demonstrated that with their not caring in the first place. The only person that your suffering as a boundary works on is someone who you don't need, that you can actually use a proper boundary with in the first place.
Yeah.
And last time I sort of went into that sort of, you called it like PTSD mode. Yeah. And I was thinking, you know what that is? That's a suffering off.
Hmm.
That's trying to, both people trying to create boundaries through the act of suffering. It's like, this is my boundary. No, this is my boundary because I'm suffering more. No, this is my boundary. I'm suffering more. Rather than people saying what they want, this is people saying, here's my suffering. Here's my suffering.
Very similar to a purity spiral.
Maybe.
Well, so why I say that? So it's this my suffering, this my suffering. So, it's the whole conversation of my ancestors. It's a hypothetical. My ancestors were an oppressed group.
Yeah.
This is how oppressed I am. And I go, oh, really? You say that? Well, mine were slaves for this many generations. Oh, really? Well, that slavery was much nicer than the slavery my ancestors experienced. And I'm disabled. And it's like, oh, you're disabled. Well, I'm cognitively deficient.
The only way the purity spiral knows how to get a claim is not through doing acts that people admire, but by saying how much they suffered.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is something I never broke a bone. I still haven't really, maybe. I might have broken my arm at one point, but the x-rays were inconclusive.
Yeah.
Which shows you that, medical technology is limited. It's miraculous, but it's limited.
Yeah.
We don't know everything. And I've never been stung by a bee. And I very rarely swear. And I thought these things made me interesting. They're so uninteresting. It's like a fact that someone learns about you once and goes, huh, and then they get on with their life, right? Like, if you never drink, that doesn't make you an interesting person. What it might do. Now look, like if you look at Trump and you say, oh, he's a cool guy because he never drinks. No. If that's what he wants to do, good. Then don't drink, right? He doesn't want to drink? Good. Live your life. Yeah. He shouldn't drink just because other people want to. But that doesn't make him interesting. Drinking doesn't make you interesting either. Like, oh, I drink a lot. But getting drunk and vomiting everywhere, that does make you interesting. It's not a good thing necessarily, but it does make you interesting. Yeah. Breaking your bone, taking risks. You take so many risks, you break a bone every other week. That makes you an interesting person. Like Evel Knievel, everyone knows about him. A foul-mouthed sailor type. You're like, oh, that guy's interesting.
I will say on the swearing thing, and I just think for you it was a bad example you came across. The person who doesn't swear, it's not interesting that they don't swear. What is interesting is when the person that doesn't swear swears.
Yes. Because
last time we talked 2 weeks ago, you did swear. And that really shocked me. I was really hit by that. And it made the swear word, to put it the way Shad Versi was talking with Sargon, and he's talking about swears, and made the swear very much what a swear was, is a spell. It's a literal word of force. Yeah. That has power beyond what it does.
So imagine if I hadn't sworn there, let's say. Yeah. I had held myself back. I hadn't said... Because, yeah, I like to think, and hopefully this is true, but it probably isn't entirely, but I like to think the reason I don't swear is simply because I'm saving it for when it matters to me. Yeah. When it's an honest swear, right? Yeah. And that is, like you said, that is interesting. There's a great scene in Firefly where the doctor character, he's this very well put together young man. And he never swears, and he's this very polite all the time guy. And they land on this planet, and they're talking about him never swearing. And he says, no, it's not that I don't swear. It's just that, you know, you need the appropriate time for it. They're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And they land on the planet, and they get out and they go into this town in the middle of this like rim world that no one's ever been to.
Yeah.
These backwards people that haven't been contacted in like 10,000 years. And there's a massive statue in the center of the town of one of their party members. And the doctor looks up at it and he just starts swearing his mind out. And it's a great scene because it's like, yeah, when there's something surprising, when there's this crazy thing, he swears. It's just he's never had the situation that's called for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Help. Where? What?
So that's what makes it interesting. Not doing all those things. Children are powerless. Spite, making someone
Right. So how do you get from spite to not doing things makes you interesting?
No, doing things makes you interesting. Not doing things makes you not interesting.
Yeah. So you
take risks. You break the bone.
You tell the kids still
you decide
be
not.
happy.
Yeah. Because
the people, they won't care about you either way.
Yeah.
There was a link, obviously, but I guess I'll go back to the kid thing. So what you learn when you learn that... we're having this purity spiral off thing.
Yeah.
The people that have never done anything with their lives, who have no accolades to their name, they think that the only thing that makes them interesting is the color of their skin or their sexuality, or because they have nothing interesting about them.
Yeah.
So they do have these like you said, they have this purity spiral off. That's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only thing they have is I am the most oppressed person in this room. And you get, you know, the meme of person sitting in the corner at the party. They don't know I'm the most oppressed person in the room.
Yeah.
That meme's perfect because the whole point is nobody cares. Everyone else is having a good time at the party. They don't care that you're this special person hiding your secret.
Honestly, Shinobi, the Japanese 15-year-old or 14-year-old syndrome, where they don't know I have a demon hidden in my eye.
Yeah, it's the same thing as the purity off, I guess. Isn't it? Yeah. It's a way to feel special when you have nothing going for you.
Mm-hmm. But what I was going to say is the Shinobi, at least they're
at least it's harmless.
Yeah, and at least they can be interesting if they really brace it, like Chibi from Psyche, where he's got like the bands on his arms and he actually pretends that he has it.
I read the weirdest fan fiction where Harry Dresden gets transported back into his teenage form in the, I think it's called High School DxD anime universe.
Okay.
Which is like there's demons that are all scantily clad and going to like an ordinary high school. But Dresden, he needs to make money because he's an orphan in Japan. And so he starts like handing out like these wizard things. Like, I'm a wizard, I'll find stuff for you. Lost stuff found, like his advertisement, right? Yeah. And because the demons are undercover, there's no known magic in the world, right? And so he's talking to this guy. It's like, oh, do you have a middle school syndrome or whatever it's called? It's like, no, I'm a wizard. Yeah. It's like, okay, classic case of middle school syndrome.
Yes. No, but it is very similar to middle school syndrome, the purity spiral. It's, I have nothing interesting, so I must make it up.
Yeah. Because if you now the weird thing is when you get people like Malcolm Gladwell, who, you know, he's a well-respected journalist and people love his books, and then he goes on to the monk debates and just makes an absolute fool of himself and calls everyone else racists, and I don't know what that is.
It says the Richard Dawkins parasitic mind,
where he's just... So the question is the purity spiral, or maybe not the purity spiral, but the purity off, the progressive stack.
Yeah.
Is the progressive stack something that arose from this circumstance?
I think it arose from the circumstance.
But it's not the foundation or something.
Yeah, it arose from it, and then to justify... it's this thing. So students were going to university. And it's like, oh, that's just a university thing. It's not going to affect. They had the gender studies. They had the Black history studies. They had the whatever studies, like the feminist studies. It's like, so these people, they were clever enough to get themselves an education and go through with it. Then they come into a world and people are like, well, your degree is going to be useless. No, they're going to make it useful because people are very adaptable.
Yeah.
And so coming out of here, they made this thing useful. So...
But what does Malcolm Gladwell get out of it?
Power,
Like, he's already a respected journalist, and everyone likes his books, and everyone's buying them. And
Well, he might just have
oh,
this...
you know what it could be? So he was arguing against Douglas Murray,
Yeah.
that British guy,
Yeah.
that amazing voice, very intelligent British guy, and Douglas Murray was saying that journalists can't be trusted, and he was defeating easily all of Malcolm Gladwell's arguments.
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell is a journalist, and none of his arguments were working. So what it could be is simply that you have nothing interesting to say.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be about your life, right? In that moment, you have no defense, so your only escape is to call the other guy a racist.
Yeah.
So again, I have nothing of value to say, so I'm going to default to the progressive stack, because the progressive stack, you can use it anywhere. You can use it in a status situation, you can use it in an argument, you can use it to get a job.
One of the most ridiculous things that happened recently, I think in the world, like if you actually think about how ridiculous this is so in the UK, a woman tried to rob a man's store.
Yeah.
He got in the way to stop her. She attacked him. So he defended himself from being attacked. Then he is called a racist. People rallied outside of his store. He's been forced to go into hiding and his store is shut down. News reports are saying that this man was man attacked woman or something, and they don't say she was a thief. And like they're not mentioning this whole thing. And
You know, you see, it's one of those, you know, like I say, you got to feel pain, but it burns. It's
yeah.
the world had this golden age. Wealth, prosperity, peace like we've never seen. And people decided they would take that wealth and use it to destroy the very society that created it, to further their own pet project, wild ideas. Crazy, absolutely crazy ideas that are interesting to explore, but they're so outlandishly far out there that, of course, you know, try them out. But you have to admit when they don't work, because they're crazy.
Yeah.
And instead, they're like, no, just throw more behind it, tear down society more. And the thing is, it's not just some crazy communists, right? Like, our mom will say stuff sometimes that's like Marxist theory following so exactly like materialist values that you don't come up with that stuff on your own, because materialism and Marxism are so abstract. You need a think tank of people going crazy for like 10 years to come up with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You need like the mental gymnastics of the greatest mental gymnasts on earth.
That meme of the person with the jetpack and the going over buildings.
You need that in order to create this stuff. And then, but it's become so naturalized that just ordinary people like our mom will just say it.
Yeah.
And like without thinking about it, like, oh, well, of course they're like, I was saying, it'd be interesting because I learned that the Haida apparently used to coat their cannonballs in gold because they had no use for gold. They're like, this is a worthless metal. Yeah. We can't come up with anything to do with it. It's too soft for any tools. And it's lying around everywhere. It's just this junk, worthless metal. Rather have a rock, right?
Yeah.
But when they finally got cannons, they're like, wait a minute. I'm not sure what the exact utility was. I guess it was something like the cannonball fits better in the...
It probably would be heavier too, to extend.
It's just a coating, so... But they found if they coated their cannonballs in gold, the cannonballs flew better. Yeah. So they were using gold-coated cannonballs to fight. And I was thinking, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? And I was talking to her like, if we had infinite resources, where would technology go? Would all knights wear titanium armor? Would they be countered with people with like gallium, like liquid gallium to dissolve their armor? Or like what would combat look like? What would the world look like? What would technology look like? And she said, well, there'd be no more war if everyone had infinite resources. And that right there that's materialist. That's a materialist analysis of the world, right? Because no, those child rapists over there who devour the children after raping them, I'm not going to be their... I don't want to be their neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm going to conquer their nation and kill every last one of them.
Yeah.
No matter how many resources we both have. And then the Marxist response to that, which we didn't get into it, but they would say, well, they were only child rapists because they didn't have the necessary resources. But you look at the richest people on Earth. You look at like the whole Epstein Island thing, right? That's not poor people going to Epstein's Island.
No.
And the amount of... like, it was everyone who's anyone basically was on his little black book, it seems like.
Yeah.
Which means it seems as though... Now, obviously, there's like the classic priest pedophile. I do wonder sometimes, and this scares me, after the whole Hollywood thing as well.
Yeah.
Are the Catholics... like, people make fun of the Catholic Church, right? Mm-hmm. And they say they're evil for this. Are they actually the most honest institution in existence, and they're just finding them all?
Yeah.
And no one else is finding them? And that scares me.
Well...
Because, like, well, we had a case with a teacher here. It just
Well, no, statistically, actually, it's not even by,
Oh, they all go to the profession.
you go through profession, no. So if you look at statistics, and this is statistics per population because there is less priests than teachers, but teachers, it's far larger amount of teachers are horrible people than priests.
Yeah.
It's magnitudes. It's like a magnitude of 10 or something.
But is that, like, proportional to the population?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Proportionally,
Wow.
it's a magnitude.
Yeah. Yeah, so that... Because
Yeah, you go to the position of power and you get in. And
it's like how narcissists and psychopaths like to seek out psychology roles.
yeah,
And it's the positions you least want that sort of person in.
yes.
Like, if there's a narcissist who's a lawnmower or something, like...
You're just going to look out your lawn and it's the piece of grass, like if you take a sky view from it, it's going to be the narcissist's face. He's mowed into your
You're
lawn.
like, well, that's kind of interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. But, you know, I was going to say like an oil rig or something, but I know a case of maybe not even a narcissist, just a disagreeable guy that was the head of an oil rig, and people were trying to kill him and hurting each other because that's a dangerous place. You need people to be cohesive in those situations. But yeah, they become doctors and psychologists and whatnot.
It's definitely, I think we're still suffering from World War II, actually.
I think that's part of it, but I also think it's Gramsci's Long March to the Institutions is actually put into action, and there's all these... What it is that there's a bunch of arrogant authoritarians who think they know better than everyone, and they will save the world through their actions and by taking control of everyone and making everything perfect.
Yeah.
And their arrogance is just destroying everything that's ever been built. And it's getting to the point where I have friends now. They come back from university and they talk about how they have these friends who are gender neutral and they have like headmates and that sort of thing. And no, actually, that said, the gender neutral thing, I'm still in disagreement. Well, it's not the gender neutral thing even. It's that they're saying people are bigoted for not being pro gender neutral pronouns. Yeah. And I said to them,
It's destruction of language.
Well, I said to them, it depends how you use language.
Yeah.
If you think it's a way to describe yourself, then yeah, you'd want to use gender neutral pronouns. Because, like, hey, this is who I am, this is how I am, right?
Yeah.
But most people still use language as, this is what that thing looks like. I don't ask a tree what it's called. I don't ask, like... And I don't go to you and I say, okay, this yellow handle here. Yeah. When you're around me, you have to call that color green, because I don't want you to call it yellow, right? I don't dictate your language, right?
Yes. In Win Friends and Influence People, he said people's favorite topic is themselves. So if I say I'm gender neutral, and the whole conversation has to be about I'm creating a situation where you are forced to talk about me.
No matter what, yeah.
No matter what.
Even when I'm not there.
And if you don't talk about me, then
you're
a horrible person.
Yeah. And so with the headmate thing, actually, I'm going to walk it back, though, because like a dissociative identity disorder, they didn't actually phrase it as headmates. They called multiple personalities.
Oh, that's what that means. That's like, what on earth they talk headmate?
Yeah.
Just...
It's multiple people in your head.
Okay.
Your mates in your head sort of thing.
All right.
But dissociative identity disorder, right? A lot of psychologists say it seems to come and go in waves, and it's whenever there's a movie about it, suddenly everyone has it.
Yeah.
It's that sort of condition. But I'm not going to dismiss it outright because, again, you shouldn't be arrogant. There might be multiple people in that person's head for all we know.
Honestly, the disorder itself could be thinking that you have multiple people.
That you don't have multiple.
Because a disorder is if it impacts your life.
Yeah.
And so if you act as if you have multiple personalities, even if in reality, like if a psychologist was to sit with you, analyze, like pick you completely apart, like you're just acting to get attention, that's still a disorder.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's what psychologists think it is typically. There's something going on that needs to be treated. But you might actually have multiple...
Yeah.
Even most people with dissociative identity disorder consider it to be a form of dissociation where they're fracturing away parts of themselves. Like even the people themselves. Brandon Sanderson has a character who has it in one of his books, and he basically does it perfectly. I think he actually consulted psychologists to write it, and people with the condition.
Yeah, I've talked with someone I know who has a really bad dissociation, and one of the weirdest things she told me is way better. Like, it used to be way worse when they were a kid. Way better now. And they're talking about, I miss some of the voices I once had. That's what they talked about. And it's like, that's strange.
So there's this book called Master and Emissary, where he talks about alien hand syndrome and a few other things in it.
Yeah.
But basically, there might be a minimum of 2 consciousnesses in a person anyways. Yeah. There might be an outward one and an inward one.
Well, there's the left side, right side thing as well. But...
Yeah. But it could be that dissociative identity disorder is actually just an awareness of the compartmentalization of your brain.
Yeah.
Because it is compartmentalized. So I'm not going to just dismiss it outright.
Yeah.
So when you grow up, and the only thing you can do to set your boundaries is suffer. Or you think that's the only way I can enforce my boundaries, even though it doesn't work. But that's how you feel. You're like, okay, I'm going to show you what your actions have done to me. I'll show you. I'll show you that I won't be happy just because you think I should be happy no matter what you do to me. It's like, you can beat me, but you can't make me happy after you beat me. That'll show you, right?
Yeah.
It means that whenever you feel happy or relaxed or calm, that's a betrayal of your own self. Because you have betrayed, you've betrayed multiple things. First of all, you're letting them get away with it.
Yes.
Also, sunk cost fallacy. You have spent your whole life miserable, and you're telling me this whole time I could have chosen to be happy at any moment?
Yeah.
That's too much to bear, right there. You're saying I could have enjoyed Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom right from the start, but I didn't? No, I have to be right. This game has to have been bad, right? I have to find all the flaws in it. I have to find every little thing. And I'm aware of that process. Like, when I'm like, no, I'm having fun. Shut up. This is fun. And I am having a great time. Thank you very much for the game. But I am having a great time and going all around looking. It's really neat looking at all the stuff they changed. And because I spent so much time in the first game that I kind of know the layout. So it's like, oh, wait, this thing used to be here and this was here and this is... And I go to a site where something was and I'm like, oh, that's changed. I wonder, like, so sensitive to spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom, right? But Breath of the Wild, I didn't care. I would have watched any video. I was watching all the trailers. I was like, game, sure. Didn't learn anything about the game.
Yeah.
I see like a tiny screenshot of Tears of the Kingdom and I'm like, my world's ending. It's like, no, you've ruined. I'll never have fun with this game again. I wonder, there is contagious phobias.
Yeah. And
there is learned behaviors for fetishes. And there is...
So are you saying if you beat someone enough, they'll like it?
Not necessarily. If you use it... If you beat... what's it called? If you put a person in a situation they like and have an element of sadomasochism involved, they might become a sadomasochist or whatever the term is. Because they start associating the two things.
Association.
Yeah. And so... And this... flavors of food that you can also adapt to them. You can like start liking them more and more. Like spice, you can adapt and have more and more. And with spice, there's actually, it seems to be a slightly biological component because there's actually like Chongqing spices can actually injure or kill people who aren't used to them. So there does seem to be an adaptation, maybe those epigenetics or something going on there. So I wonder if spoilers are actually, well, obviously they're bad because they have that effect, but they might not have to be bad.
So, long before I went through the process of listening to Mao's Handbook of the Fallen.
When Sparta went to war.
Is that a reference to...
It's to a Sabaton song.
Okay.
Many years ago.
You told me all about Mao's Handbook of the Fallen.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I don't know if you're going to read it ever. Because you didn't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll probably never read it. Probably never read it. So I had tons of spoilers. And it's interesting. I listened through the whole series.
Can you enunciate clear slightly?
I listened through the whole series. I really enjoyed it. And part of it was, I wonder when this character is going to show up that Kevin told me about.
Yeah.
And I had a very different experience spoiler-wise because, like, when is this thing going to happen? And then I get the whole context of the scene instead of you're like, oh, this really cool thing. Or I would get... You talked about Icarium. We were on a boat trip.
Yeah.
I was in the boat, you were there. You were talking about Icarium while we were in the boats. And you described him this certain way, you talked about him. And you said he's basically like Goku. And when I got to Icarium, holy cow, Cameron's description of this character was terrible. He's completely different. It's like, did we read? And so that was a very interesting reflection, retrospection on that.
Yeah, I think they're, like I watched Citizen Kane, right?
Yeah.
And the whole Rosebud was his sled that everyone knows about.
Yeah.
Massively spoils the entire movie. Massively. Like, it's hard to understand. Like, it sounds like a silly line, but it's actually kind of what the whole movie hinges on, is not knowing that.
Yeah.
And yet I had a great time watching it. So it is definitely possible to enjoy spoiled work.
Yeah.
And there has been studies on this, like psychological studies, where they find people on average tend to like works more when they're spoiled. But I don't really trust those studies because, first of all, it varies. Like, it's always like, oh yeah, some people sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't, sort of thing. And it depends on the person.
Yes.
And I think, if I recall correctly, they have a correlation with IQ and enjoying spoilers. So the smarter someone is, the more likely they are to, or not the smarter, the higher their IQ, let's say at least, the more likely they are to enjoy spoilers.
Okay.
So, like, or having something spoiled for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people use that as, I'm smart, so I'm going to check out the spoilers first. But a lot of people say, well, I like to read the Wikipedia page ahead of time, and then I understand the whole story going in.
I have a friend like that.
So for me, first of all, there's very few stories I can't figure out the whole story from the get-go, basically, because most stories aren't very complex.
Yeah.
There are some, like Guy Ritchie movies, that are these weird, complicated messes.
Yeah.
And then there's Malazan as well is interesting because you can't spoil Malazan. Like, you can tell someone everything you can remember about it, and that's like 1% of the series.
Yes.
Because it's just so dense. Like, Wheel of Time you can spoil easier than Malazan.
Yeah.
Because Malazan's shorter, but it's so dense with stuff. So, yeah, but there is also this first time experience that you get sometimes, and it's this very magical feeling. And you can get the spoiled read the second time you watch a movie, or the second time you read a book, or the second time you play a game. Where, like, I know everything and this is interesting. And maybe having both, but is that experience, that magical first time where you have no expectations? That's the problem, right? I had no expectations for Breath of the Wild, and it blew them away.
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom, by wanting to avoid spoilers, I already had expectations about it.
So,
I spoiled a massive early game detail for you of Outer Wilds.
which was... Oh, okay, yeah.
Did that lessen your experience of the game, do you think?
Not for me.
Because it's a very minor detail,
Yeah.
but it's a very big surprise the first time you see it. And you didn't get that surprise of like, whoa. You took away the surprise, right? But I wonder if surprise is sort of one of those false emotions.
So, that's what I was about to talk about. So, the first time we played Minecraft,
Yeah.
we were playing a demo in creative mode. We had access to 64 blocks. In the computer room, we were both taking turns trying to build things. We didn't have creative flight, but we had land blocks. We couldn't take damage. We were in a flat plane. We were both enamored by the game.
Yeah.
No,
it wasn't a flat plane. It's these. It was the demo world.
Yeah,
there used to be this world with like a little house and
yeah. So we were absolutely enamored by it.
Yeah.
And it was a very cool experience. So we played. Then we got actual Minecraft. And we played Minecraft for the first time. And from what I understand, our first experience of Minecraft is actually very different than a lot of people's first experience of Minecraft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because... So, and this is probably partly what a lot of people who got the game when we got its first experience was like, in some ways. Especially for you, it was definitely partly for me, but... Alright, so I build the crafting table. I know how to build a crafting table. Now, how would you build a pick? And you put that things in there, and the pick shows up. But then we're like, alright, what other items could possibly exist? Well, we think axes exist, so let's make an axe. So we try to make an axe, and we try to make a sword. And then we were putting blocks in random combinations that might make sense to try to figure out what blocks exist.
You know what it was as well? It was sort of playground lore. Yeah. Like, you knew that the axe existed.
Yeah.
Because you had seen Friend play, I think.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, there's an axe, and I think it's like this, but I'm not sure. Yeah. And there's like a portal, but I don't know how to make it. So we knew these things had a concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and it was a very magical experience of like this, the first time playing Minecraft. A lot of people describe it as like, would you want to go back and get the experience the first time playing Minecraft? And
I actually would be fine not to for Minecraft specifically. Yeah.
Well, that's respect. I'd be fine not to as well. But I think about how so on servers I've played with, I get them set up, and sometimes I have a minor amount of control over them, sometimes I don't, because it's all community driven. And when the server dies, is basically one person maxes out all the mods, or they max out the powerful mods, and so they're working towards maxing out the mods, and they do this way faster than me, because a lot of people are younger than me, they're in situations where they don't need to work as much as me, they can obsess far more over Minecraft than me.
Yeah.
And so they get to that point, and they're like the one person's always on the server, other people pop on, it's like, I'm playing a little bit. And so the server basically dies when they're done, or the server host gets bored of running the server. Whereas me and, like, there's two other guys, like Budgie Master and I can't remember I think it's Wendell or something. So there's me and two other people, and I feel like Budgie Master's kind of given up on this. Or he'll load in, it's like, I haven't been able to play in like a week, and I'm going to build a house now. And he builds the house, and then he's done. And then the server knows, like, we're making a new server because no one's playing on this anymore. It's like, I had some plans of next time I was going to play on that server. And that's it for me too. It's like I'm trying to max out, or not max out, but like I have goals I want to reach. But it's also, I'm just going to build this random thing, or I'm going to make this janky system. I'm going to see if I can get it working. But definitely where Minecraft seems to shift, and I think JI kind of does this to an extent, and the Green Book now in the base game does the extent of, here's everything that's craftable, and then you're like, ooh, I see that, I want to make that now. And
yeah, it's more goal-oriented rather than discovery-oriented.
I think the Green Book does it slightly better, because what the Green Book does is...
If you can do it.
Yeah, these are the resources now you can craft. And the Bewitchment team, they did a thing which is basically the book... so you can look at JI, but J is not going to help you completely.
Yeah.
And so you can use the book to look at the recipes. And then getting achievements will unlock more recipes in the book, so you can proceed further. But a mod that did even better is the Eldritch Horror mod, which it has a unique crafting table. I hate that crafting table, I'm just going to say it now, but it has this unique crafting table that J items doesn't work in. And they purposely do that. The programmer did that on purpose. That's not compatible. And wouldn't be surprised if someone tried to make a mod that would make it compatible, that he would release an update that would break that mod on purpose. So you have to look at the book, you unlock the thing, you go through with it. And there's so many points in this book where when you're ready, this next thing will unlock. And you have no idea what is when you're ready.
Yeah, Astral Sorcery does that too.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't break stuff on purpose, but
yeah.
you unlock things as you go.
Yeah. And a lot of people really like those mods. Like, it's such a cool story. It's got like this progression.
I was playing in what's it called? Fantasy Reforged? The mod that you have to start with flint and you have to tie vines to flint, and then you can build a forge, and you actually have to forge metal, like that mod. Mm-hmm. I was playing that one again, and it has a book for all its recipes. There's like 400 pages, and you have to tab through them, and it doesn't save your spot every time. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to do that, a good book is very important, because there's a bit of a pain to like sort through.
Yes.
But yeah, it's more the little discovery there is.
Yeah, but so the first feeling of the video game, or the first, like, there is definitely a delight in discovering something the first time. I wouldn't call it a false emotion, but so you talked about that one game reviewer. He reviews all the indie games, and he's like, I must get the newest thing, must get the new thing, must get the new thing. And he's actually not really enjoying games, and a lot of game reviewers are actually like this. And it's like some of them, like, hunting that spark up. It's the first time I played this game.
Yeah.
It's like doing cocaine and the first high being the best.
So I think, okay,
So it's not a false emotion, but
maybe
you shouldn't seek it, but you should be delighted to have it.
Okay, maybe it's maybe spoilers versus self-discovery. Yeah. So what I mean by this is, I don't know if you, like, this is harder and harder to have these days, but there was this thing you could do back in the day with video games. You can do it with books as well. Also harder and harder, because everything is so easy to get now. Mm. But what you used to be able to do was, Harry Potter, book 5 came out in 2003, maybe? 2005?
Yeah.
And me and my friend got it at the same time, and we were reading through it at about the same pace, and we'd just talk on the playground, like, all our theories, like, maybe this will happen, maybe this will happen, maybe this will happen. And let's say I'm a bit further ahead than her. I'd say, oh no, that can't happen because this already happened. She's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
There was no worrying about spoilers, right?
Yeah.
Because we were equals in a way. Even though I was further ahead than her at some point and she was further ahead than me, we were equals discovering it together, right?
Yes.
And we weren't going online and saying, okay, let's look up this spoiler, right?
Yeah.
It was our theories. So if you and I had started playing Tears of the Kingdom at the same time,
Yes.
it would be great fun to watch you. That looks really fun. I'm going there next. And then you watch me and you're like, you can do that? That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But now, I don't even want to talk to you about Tears of the Kingdom or watch you play or have you watch me play.
Yeah.
Because you'll give something away that's too much for me. But if you start at the same time, you can sort of be kids on the playground sharing it. Like, okay, did you find the ghost house secret in Super Mario World? If you fly in the first zone and go up to the top of the roof, there's this area you can go into, and it's a secret exit to ghost house, and it gives you a blue Yoshi every time. And that's something, it's not a spoiler, it's like, we both have limited knowledge, we'll share it. That's how the original Legend of Zelda was designed.
Yeah.
It was meant to be this stupidly hard game that you would just go to your friends. It was meant to be a garden you could carry around in your pocket and put away in a drawer. And you go to your friends like, okay, I've been playing for 30 hours. What do I do now? And they're like, have you tried using fire on that bush? You're like, you can use fire on bushes? You go over and use fire on the bush. You're like, whoa.
Well, that's part, like, even though I've done it once, played the game, well, I've actually technically played it twice, but Baldur's Gate, when I'm playing with my friends, it's a very different experience. And part of it is hey, I'm doing this crazy thing, or like, we actually, even though we played at different paces, like, one guy played it ridiculously fast, and I played it ridiculously fast, to be perfectly honest. But we still slightly get to experience that, like, hey, let's explore this game together.
Whereas I played Terraria with a guy once, where I was having great fun with my friends playing Terraria for about 50 hours. Then a guy came in at around the 50-hour mark. We had just beaten 2 of the bosses, and he's like, here's all the best gear in the game. He just handed it to all of us.
Yeah. Well,
ruined the game.
That's why I refuse to play Factorio with basically... The only people I play Factorio with is you or someone who's never played it.
Because then we can be like, have you tried out this thing? Have you done this? Have you done that?
Because when the few times I've tried to play it with Romney...
That's not optimal.
No, literally, like, he went so fast towards this one thing. Like, he just beelined to try and get certain technology and do these certain things and, like, just advance to a certain point in it. And that's not how I want to play that game. Like,
so it's
like, they were horrified. I was playing with 2 other people. I was playing with Romney and one of our other friends. And they came across my burner inserter. And what I did is I had a burner inserter that would pull coal off their line. So they had a coal line going.
Oh, and
so it pulled the coal off their line and gave it to a burner inserter. And that would grab it and give it to another one. That would grab it, give it to another one. That would grab it, to another one. And so it was 4 of them in a circle. And they were literally just picking up the coal and putting it in a circle. And when they needed to consume coal, they would eat it. And then they just keep going in a circle. And whenever new coal was needed to add to my burner inserter line, it grabbed coal and pulled it off. And it was this completely unnecessary, detrimental machine that was actively adding pollution to the environment, making the bugs more angry. And they accused me, like, are you trying to make the bugs attack us? No, I like looking at the hands grab the coal.
made a silly thing.
Yeah.
Or when we were playing together, and I was you were like, where are all our bullets going? I was like, fine, I'll figure it out. So I started walking along the line. I was like, okay, the iron goes here, then this thing picks it up and puts it here, then this comes along and puts it here, and then that goes into a splitter, which sends all the iron onto this conveyor belt, which, this is a loop. This doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it was just this fun, like, our 2 brains working together, bit by bit, had just made this completely useless, massive loop that did nothing. So I think it sounds like, maybe, you might agree then, spoilers aren't an issue. It's the degree of shared information relative to your relationship with the other person.
Yes.
Like, and that's the problem with online, is they have no idea what our relationship is or what is a spoiler to me and not.
Yeah.
Like, if you come to me and you say, there's time travel in Tears of the Kingdom, I'm like, sure. But someone else comes to me and they're like, did you know they got rid of bomb arrows in Tears of the Kingdom? I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't tell me they got rid of bomb arrows. And but you know that, and so but it's more than that. It's not just what affects a person. It's actually, it's like a built-up relationship of we are equals. It's when it's a relationship of equals sharing information rather than someone giving you everything.
Yeah.
It's the handout that's the problem. It's, I will give you this on high. So if you tell me anything about Tears of the Kingdom, you are the player coming in at 50 hours and giving me all the top items.
Yeah.
Because you know everything about the game relative to me. But if we start the game at the same time, and you're like, have you been to this area yet? There's a really cool item under that rock. I'm like, oh, neat, because we're equals. And so we're working together. People don't like things handed to them, but they like helping each other out. I think that's what it is. And so the problem with spoilers coming from an impersonal thing like online or radio or something like that is that there is no relationship of equals there whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, we're not both trying to figure out Citizen Kane together. I'm telling you what happened exactly. Yeah, that's... Huh. And so, if we talk about like, we're not going to, but if, just in the abstract, if we're talking about Outer... What am I saying?
Elder Wilds. It's
Elder.
it's the amalgamation of Elden Ring and Outer Wilds. They're actually relatively similar.
Huh.
They actually are relatively similar. In just know how Dark Souls, how you come back to life, and the world's the same.
You know, Dark Souls... This is a feeling... This is what spoilers do as well. They make the world smaller in a way.
Yeah.
Dark Souls is the biggest world I've ever seen in any video game. Which is weird, because it's not very big.
Yeah.
But there's like 4 branching paths I haven't explored, and I'm overwhelmed because, well, first, everything's so hard, right? So you're like, I could go there, but oh, that thing's scary, or I could go here. There's just too much to do. But then you have a game like, I don't know, Breath of the Wild. Massive world. It is massive. It's absolutely massive. But it's like, I can handle this. I got this. It'll take me time, but I got this.
Yeah.
But
That's a different game series entirely.
well, Morrowind and Dark Souls, you're like, I'm not sure if I got this.
Yeah.
And that's a really neat feeling, actually. And Outer Wilds is kind of the same. Because in Outer Wilds, it's just sort of like, go. Mm-hmm. There is no goal in the game. It's just your own curiosity. Because you're so confused that you're like, what on... It's really well done. But you just sort of go, and it's like, I don't know what to do, and I'm scared.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah.
Because a game that just says, like my complaint with Tears of the Kingdom, is if you had never played a Zelda game before, it's kind of a go, and you're like, what does that mean? What does it mean to go in a Zelda game?
Yeah.
Okay, so the very first Zelda game. This is interesting. The equivalent for my Tears of the Kingdom first experience, right?
Yeah.
Is like if I was playing the first Zelda game, and the first thing I do is leave through one of the exits. And I'm like, this game sucks. I'm running past enemies. There's all this stuff going on. There's all these areas I can't get to. I don't get it. It's like, did you go in the cave? What? The cave? There's a cave? Yeah, did you go in the cave? What's in there? You get a sword.
There's a reason why that annoying little boy blocks your way in Ocarina of Time and doesn't let you go through the tunnel.
But it's kind of like, I prefer the freeing thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I prefer what Zelda 1 does, but what it means is that there is going to be players that hate the game.
Well, in Ocarina of Time, this is what would happen, is if you didn't block the way until you have the sword, you would run down that tunnel and get eaten by evil plants because you couldn't fight them.
That's the other thing that Tears of the Kingdom does that Breath of the Wild didn't do nearly as much, and it makes Tears of the Kingdom a game much more for adults, I think. You have to, like, you go into areas, and it's very fuzzy. Like, there's no line of, like, this is a level 20 zone, right?
Yeah.
It's very fuzzy, where you're like, I don't think I can beat this. Like, I could keep bashing my head against it again and again and again and maybe get through it, but I don't think I can beat this, and I have to admit that and go and get stronger and then come back. And that is, there's a reason that basically every game out there has moved away from that model. Like, the first 2 Final Fantasy games were dungeon crawlers.
Yeah.
It was actually, you go into a dungeon until you run out of gear, then you get back to town, hopefully don't die on the way back. Back in town, you can save game, buy new gear, you keep going.
So they were actual roguelikes.
Well, Final Fantasy wasn't a... it wasn't a rogue, it was a dungeon crawler.
Yeah, like, Rogue was dungeon. You go down a dungeon.
But Rogue isn't, like...
Yeah.
Dungeon crawler is like a genre that Rogue isn't part of, actually.
Well, I guess so,
because dungeon crawlers are more about gear attrition.
Yeah.
And Rogue, your gear, you can lose your gear, but if you get the sword at the start of the game can take you to the end, sort of.
Yeah.
Whereas in a dungeon crawler, and a lot of dungeon crawlers evolved from Rogue.
Yeah.
But Angband is more like or Moria maybe is more like the original dungeon crawler, because you go back to town, you resupply, you hope you have enough food to get back down. It's a lot more planning of up and down.
Yeah.
Whereas Rogue is more like push on. So Rogue is a much easier game is a much less adult game.
Yeah.
And I actually prefer Rogue over Angband, because it's like, okay, just move forward and do the best you can. Whereas Angband, it's like, okay, I can move forward and do the best I can, but maybe I need to turn back, and maybe I have to admit maybe I have to admit I'm not good enough and I have to turn back.
Yeah.
You know how like D&D moved away from this, where encounters used to be random?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a dragon, so don't fight it.
Yeah.
But now D&D is like, you must have the same CR rating so the players can always attack and win.
Yeah.
And it's much harder. Like first edition and 0 edition D&D, it's like you have to judge. You're like, can I fight 6 orcs? I'm 4 level 1 characters. Can I beat 6 orcs? Maybe. Is that worth it? And it calls into the part of your brain that is uncertainty and doubt.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Like it hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable at the very least. It's not bad necessarily, but it's not comfortable. And so games have moved towards being more comfortable, but Tears of the Kingdom isn't exactly.
You know, saying the evolution on the political compass of my opinion. So this is my DM on political compass evolution.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell my age by how I proceed as DM. Start. This looks cool. Let's throw it against the players.
Yeah.
So that's start. Then move to I've made this world, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So this is the way that things are. You're going to have to deal with it. To I'm playing with you guys. I'm not against you guys. Like, sorry, this is my world. You're going to have to deal with it. It's a little bit I'm playing against you. So I made this world with you guys. Like, you're never going to like. There's always a way out, sort of thing. Like if you can get out of this situation. Like there's always a solution. I'm with you guys. I want you to win.
Yeah.
To, all right, you decide to walk into the dark forest without torches. Let's see what happens to you. Evil cackle.
Well, I think dice being king is the way to go. Like you just say, okay, because it keeps the DM honest as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a bugbear, or oh no, it was just 2 goblins. You're fine.
Yeah.
It keeps. I added a mechanic to First Heroes recently. I might not keep it. It's in testing. Because I was like, I don't really have a way for assassins to, and for like plucky heroes to play the game. Like there's fighters, there's clerics, there's in a sense, right?
Yeah.
There's not really a plucky hero assassin type build. And I was thinking, you can have skills. You could have the stealth skill and you can have the poisoning skill and everything. But that means you have to say, okay, we're all bedding down for tonight. I'm going to scout ahead while everyone's here, and then you're playing with the DM, and it's sort of like you and the DM are playing together while everyone else is just sleeping or something.
Yeah, and 5e actually suffers from that with his assassins. Like, you can't really play assassins and rogues unless the whole party is playing assassins and rogues.
That's funny, because I actually stole this mechanic slightly from 5e, where they have, it might be from Xanathar's Handbook, but they have this great idea, which is I was like, okay, what if, this will keep the DM honest too, because they can't adjust the encounter to account for me doing this now. Because I already have the system of free time.
Yeah.
So you have like 8 hours of free time, maybe you make a magic item, maybe you make a potion. I was like, okay, what if you can just store that in your inventory, essentially? And then you're in a fight, and you say, sometime through the fight, actually I used 4 of my hours to sneak into their camp last night, and that guy's poisoned, and he's like at half strength.
I didn't know that was suggestion like that was in Xanathar's.
It's one of the feats of the assassin, is he can at any point leave the scene. And so you say, okay, I'm leaving. And then that player just takes the character off the map. And then at any other point, he can say, I have returned. And he can return as any NPC. So you're like, you're talking to the king. And then you're like, I pull off my mask. I was the king's advisor. And so my system, it would mean to poison the guy, you'd have to have the poison already. You don't just get a poison out of the ether. And you have to do like a couple rolls to get past the guards and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it allows you to be like, okay, I succeeded my makeup roll. I succeeded my kidnapping roll. So I was the advisor the whole time.
Yeah.
And now you could say you can do that without needing to do the weird retroactive thing.
Yeah.
But what the weird retroactive thing allows you to do is keep the DM honest. Because they can't say, oh yes, but the king has 3 advisors actually, and because he has to react instead to you doing that.
Also, doing that thing lets you play with a party, because as I said, one of the greatest aggravations I had when I was trying to play online D&D for a bit, and it was like mostly through text, is we were going through a dungeon area, and I had made an assassin. And my idea behind this assassin was they were fast. They were absurdly fast. Like they had, at level 3, they had very high move speed. And assassins their whole thing is, if they get surprised from their enemies, they can basically kill one target.
Yeah.
However, pre-D&D rules, if your whole party doesn't succeed a sneaking scenario, then everyone's discovered and you can't get surprised.
Yeah.
So assassins basically never get to do this ability unless their whole party is stealth. And so I ran ahead of the party. It's like, I want to do this. So I ran ahead of the party. I said, this is what I'm doing.
But then you have to split the party, and it's this...
Well, so I said, I'm running ahead of the party, and I encountered hook horrors. It's like, all right, I'm going to wait for my party to show up. I'm going to get in position. And so when my party's there, because I'm super stealth, I'm going to start the fight with a surprise attack.
Yeah.
And DM's like, alright, whatever. And we got there and it's like, alright, everyone roll for group stealth. And rolled for it. Wasn't good enough. Hook horrors discover us. I didn't get to have my surprise turn.
Yeah. Whereas with my system, you can say, I was already there waiting to stab them in the back.
Yeah.
You can even do it. You don't have to be an assassin. You can say, my fighter actually scouted ahead and he's in position to jump out right beside the guy once the fight starts so that archer doesn't get a good position or something.
Yeah.
Or my mage teleported in 3 hours ago and replaced all their arrows with, like, candy floss.
Yeah.
So I really like the idea. My main concern is just it feels very much like a feat, and I don't like feats because they're something you have to buy, right? But in this case, anyone has access to it. The resource isn't the assassin skill, it's just time.
Yeah.
It's just you have to say, I'm taking 4 hours out of my day to do this instead. Like you can say, I choose not to sleep to store some free time. You could do that, sure.
Yeah.
You don't get the rest bonus, and maybe you die of exhaustion, but you build up some free time. And so I think it is a good idea.
It's that thing. So Tom with the Ogscast released a channel called Mystery Quest, and it's role playing. He's DM.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing game master. Like how he does it, I think it's partly has to be your personality in a way how he does it.
Yeah.
But he's like, sure, let's roll with that. Or he will ask them. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the DM's like, sure, let's roll with that. But the ease of which he does it, and he's willing to just let the other person take spotlight, even though he's DM.
You enjoy D&D stories much more than me, I believe, right? Like talking to other people about your campaign and whatnot.
Yes.
So I've seen a thing online. The video I saw recently was something like, oh, I let my players summon a unicorn. Big mistake. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
And people talk about it like, oh, my players are these crazy. They did this thing. And it was just... My question about that, and part of the reason why I don't like D&D stories, you're the DM, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have control over that unicorn.
Exactly.
So I don't really understand what the problem is.
Yeah.
I don't really know what happens there. Like, Tom, I'm not saying does that, because he never goes, oh, I can't believe... I can't imagine Tom ever going to a pub and saying, I had this wacky game with my players where they just totally blew my mind, because he's always... His gameplay is literally, yeah, that's part of the game. You do that. There's no... You can't break Tom's game.
Yeah.
But a lot of D&D stories seem to be, the players broke my game. So how?
Yeah.
Like, there's that story online about how that guy killed Haster,
Mm-hmm.
and his DM got really angry at him. It's like, why? Just don't let Haster die. What's going on?
Yeah. Or roll with it. Haster died. Okay, what's next?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool, really. And so I think they're probably played up a bit. Like, the DM was like, okay, if you can pull this off, go for it. But the DM was surprised that the guy had stored 400 tons of TNT in an ice rink the day before and blew up Haster. And it's like, how can he surprise you with his prep?
Yeah.
Doesn't he have to tell you about the prep? Unless the DM was playing with the rule I just was talking about, where he's like, you're allowed to use your prep time and money to do whatever. Maybe that was the rule.
Yeah.
But then your DM doesn't seem like your DM seems like a very permitting guy, not an unpermitting guy.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's why I find, and even when players say, and then I did this, I don't know. I'm too judgmental about these things, I know that.
Well, your judgmental has made me have to make the animation that I did the way I made it.
Which one was that?
The Death by Cutlery.
You had to focus on certain things?
I made a proper narrative instead of... It's like talking about dreams. Like I made a proper narrative in a story, and...
That he rolled a 16, and we were all like, 16.
Well, I actually, in that story, I had to say they rolled poorly, because...
Well, I mean, that does work in places.
Yeah.
No, I watch, for some reason, I occasionally watch this channel called Co-op Game Shop, something like that.
Yeah.
It's single-player games only, so I don't know why it's called co-op, but there's like 6 different hosts on one channel, and they play single-player games. I think they probably all work in the same game store or something.
Yeah.
And they play these single-player games. Most of them are based on dungeon crawlers and roguelikes.
Yeah.
And they'll do stuff like, they'll be like, okay, so I have to open this door. I rolled a 16! And they're like, oh, this treasure gives me +1 attack. I'll put that on my character. And, I mean, I'm glad they get excited about it. I just don't get it. It's like, the dice only has... The dice has a 16 on it. Like, if you roll a 20-sided die and you get a 47, then I would be like, what the... There's a 47!
Also, what that is, you roll 20. I was like, oh, crit, that's nice. Then you roll 20s. Okay, and then you roll 20. It's like, and you roll 20.
Yeah, when the
and
odds...
then you have to, like, put your dice in some water, and, like, is this thing, like, wait...
Yeah, when the odds start becoming very difficult, that's a different story, I think.
Yeah.
But I rolled 399s in a row recently on 100-sided dice. It's like, what? But, why couldn't that have been 100? But no, I think it's the same thing that gets me as spoilers. Actually, it's you knew that was an option.
Yeah.
Why are you surprised by a 16? Or you've played this dungeon crawler 100 times and you got +1 attack. Like, that's one of the 5 item cards in the game. Now maybe he's so good at the game, it's like, this is the item I need right now, and this is the best, right?
Yeah.
I don't begrudge him his happiness and excitement. I just, you can be dismissive of anything, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And I think I wrote it down somewhere, but you need to defend those hobbies which you find meaningful to you.
Yep.
Because otherwise you stop believing in their meaningfulness yourself.
Yeah.
And then you lose what was actually important there. So if he were here, I would want him to say, no, this is great, and this is... Yeah, I don't want to denigrate that, I guess.
I've got a question for you. Completely different topic, but it's related to something older you were saying. So, how would you destroy the world?
Like, all of it?
Yeah, so we'll start big. Destroy all of it. Destroy the world.
Me, myself.
Well, let's say you are... you have shadowy cabal powers.
Okay. Project Orion, but with the Earth into the sun. No, that's too much work. With the moon into the Earth.
Alright, so, moon into the Earth. Very interesting thing happens when you try to drop the moon into the Earth, because this is one of the things I thought of.
Yeah.
Luckily, Corpsegarth also asked these questions, and they actually answer this. So they propose knocking the moon into the Earth. So, you could try to blow up a bunch of bombs on the side of the moon.
Yeah.
Not going to work. If you took basically all of Earth resources and put them into rockets on the side of the moon,
Yeah.
and tried to steer it towards the Earth,
Yeah.
or try to stop the moon, because you can try to push it towards the Earth,
Yeah.
or you could try to stop its orbit so it'd fall. So, there's not enough flaming resources for rocket propellants to steer the moon into the Earth. They would move it by an inch.
Like, not even like the Project Orion riding nuclear blasts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you use magic to drop the moon at Earth.
Okay.
So when its orbit decays into the Earth, like if you dropping it directly might make it work.
Earth would tear it to shreds.
Yeah, it gets torn to shreds.
But then Earth would be bombarded with like stuff.
Yeah, no, it would be bad, but there's still a lot of life would survive, a lot of Earth would survive. So, and that's not destroying the Earth. That would just be really sucky for most things on the Earth for a couple thousand years.
Okay, so you use a big object, like a big ball of steel, to grab an asteroid with just the gravitational pull.
Yeah.
And you use that to grab a bigger object. And so on until you grab the moon.
Yeah.
And use the moon to grab Earth. And then you this would take probably like hundreds or thousands of years. Well, probably thousands or millions of years. Hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
You pull Earth into the sun. I think that's doable with not too many resources, probably.
But it would take a very long time. So it's not very likely. Okay, so how would you wipe out all life on Earth instead? Let's make it a little easier. How would you wipe out all life on Earth?
Wipe out all life on Earth.
Because that's kind of like destroying the Earth. That's kind of hard.
I can think of a way that could do it, but it's not reliable. But if you could somehow get a black hole to shoot a gamma ray at Earth.
You're a shadowy cabal. You can't steer a black hole at Earth.
Right, no, but what I mean is, if you could somehow predict the path of... I mean, it could happen at any point. It could just happen.
I'm saying you're a shadowy cabal. Your resources is what humanity has.
Right, but there's just a tiny chance it'll happen anyways.
Yeah, but I'm saying you're actively...
Right, but nobody would know if it wasn't me. Like, who's...
Yeah, but you're active, like, you're not... You're trying to do this certainly. You're not doing it on the roll of a dice of the black hole.
Who's gonna call me out for not being the one who actually controlled the black hole?
Yeah, but I'm saying you're actually trying to do this. This is the thought. You're like, what... With the resources that Earth has, you're...
Right, but I did do it. I did control the black hole.
Alright, so besides the black hole, which is extremely unlikely...
No, it's very likely because I did it. And who's gonna call me out? Okay, no. I'll be serious. All life on Earth. I want to go with... That wouldn't be all life, but for a decent amount, I want to do something with, like, tectonic faults. Like, nukes inside faults and inside, like Yellowstone and just try to get things moving.
All right, yeah. So you already admitted not all life. So we'll drop down a scale again. So how would you kill all human life on Earth?
Right. A virus, probably. Like airborne rabies.
So interesting thing about a lot of diseases in humans is, especially when it comes to viruses, there is just going to be a percent of the population that's immune to it.
That's why I chose rabies.
Humans are immune to it? Ever?
The survival rate of rabies in all of human history is 9 people.
How many people have gotten rabies?
Lots.
Yeah, well, 9 people have survived it, and
yeah, like there would be some left, but they would probably be so scattered that like it is the deadliest disease on Earth. So
yeah, so airborne rabies. So you airborne rabies people. So you have to, pandemic showed that things can spread pretty well, but there'll be pockets of civilization where it won't get to. People huddle in place again, like, and especially if it's airborne rabies, and we're seeing like it's a 95% kill.
Okay, so like cordyceps, human tailored cordyceps, which encourages people to seek out remote people.
So even on that, a study was done on cordyceps, and looking at influence things, sort of like, they can influence bugs, bigger beetles. So the bigger the brain and the bigger the nervous system, the less power those influential things have. It's actually a study was done to see if the lactobus cordyceps could happen. And basically, the human body would die before cordyceps could happen.
I think I got it. CFC factory.
So cause it ice age?
Nope. Destroy the ozone layer. Everyone dies of cancer.
Yeah.
So you just pump chlorinated fluorocarbons into the atmosphere until there's no ozone left.
So everyone's going to be having like tin umbrellas and walking around in aluminum suits.
But they couldn't go out. Like, one of the theories for the mass extinctions was actually something like half the ozone layer got evaporated by a cosmic ray and just like killed everything on that half of the Earth or something.
Yeah, so the plants burn. The flare happens from Maze Runner. And it carves a piece of the Earth out. And
I was actually thinking Maze Runner basically did kill everyone. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you read the books, but like...
I did.
Everyone dies.
Yeah.
Like, even in the last book at the end, they're like, the heroes prevent the cure.
Yeah.
And there's like 20 of them left.
Yeah.
So humanity dies. Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, pretty ludicrous to have a evil company do that actively, or evil group to actively.
Well, I think you could also communism in it, right? Like you make people think it's in their best interest to be pumping out the CFCs.
Yeah. Okay. So you communists make it. All right. So you have that, right? So actively trying to
wait, one more.
Yeah.
Develop a prion that, like a human prion.
Yeah.
Start in Madagascar.
Yeah. And then it only becomes deadly like 20 years in once it's affected all humanity.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, it's so my best thought to how to do that. So you could use all the nuclear weapons on Earth at once.
Yeah.
And we actually don't have enough nuclear weapons, but we can make it pretty bad.
And we could make more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if we use all the uranium available, because Kurt's got the video on this, if we used all the uranium available and set off all nuclear weapons at once, where we set off would suck, but the biggest problem would probably be the nuclear winter.
Interesting. So Kurtzigat admits that there's not much uranium on Earth, and yet they think that nuclear power is this useful solution. Curious. Checkmate, atheists.
Uranium is what they have. There's a lot of uranium, but
there's not like available uranium. There's like 230 years at current use or something.
Yeah,
it's more limited than oil.
Yeah. Anyway, so very nasty nuclear winter is basically what would wipe out humanity. Although there is actually a chance that they would survive the nuclear winter.
We've done it before.
Yes. Like you go into that place in Turkey.
Yeah.
And you have like enough supplies in there.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm not even certain so we have a nuclear winter happens. And like we,
Ooh. You just, you just pump artificial estrogen into the water supply.
that could work too.
Everyone's gone in a generation.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would probably work.
yeah. That's actually a pretty good one for killing off humanity.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's scary about that?
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, it definitely prompted us to overcome.
We'd try to do something about it, yeah.
Like making sperm out of stem cells and
Yeah.
so adaptation is possible there even with that situation. So but with the nuclear winter,
You convince people that adopting's bigoted.
nuclear winter.
Yeah.
So we've had periods of ice age causing things like ash clouds. Krakatoa, I think, caused a miniature ice age. And like, we've had these periods, and they've lasted for like 2, 3, 4 years, like the cloud ice age. I do wonder if, because the climate system is a very weird thing that we don't quite understand. And there was that theory that's like, so the Earth's going to warm up, then bam, we're going to get hit by like the worst ice age ever, and the day after tomorrow, like that freezing wave of cold that made people like shatter.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if we like nuclear winterized Earth.
Yeah.
And it's been shown, like studies have been done on forest fires, that lightning storms occur inside the smoke clouds and actually reduce the amount of pollutants literally by like remineralizing the Earth through the traveling of the lightning bolt.
Yeah, it's actually very hard to mess anything up.
Yeah, so like we get this nuclear winter, right? And so we have these clouds of nuclear dust. And when you see a mushroom cloud, like the footage we have of them, there's lightning storms going on inside of them.
Yeah.
Like, so boom. Like,
Volcanoes as well.
yeah, nuclear dust is all over the Earth. And it's like, this is going to cause like a 100-year nuclear winter.
And that awakens Lugia.
Yeah, like Lugia, or like we're 5 years into the winter, and suddenly like Lugia, like the jet stream literally rises out of the ocean.
Yeah.
Like just the system, like suddenly all the clouds just get sucked into this vortex above Antarctica and freeze solid or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of remarkably self-correcting mechanisms on Earth.
Yeah, and so that's just a statement of I don't even know if a nuclear winter would be good, and even then, like, it's possible that we could survive it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I was really trying to come up with ways like destroy the Earth. Okay, that doesn't work. Kill off all life on Earth. Okay, that doesn't work. Well, make most of life die. That's really hard, and it's not proven that that'll do anything. Your artificial estrogen is actually a pretty good one, but
I'm something of a supervillain myself.
yeah. So these are active supervillain thoughts and plots of how to wipe out humanity, how to kill all things.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of doing that by accident or like your estrogen things actually is the case of accident, but that's not what people focus on. Things can get a lot worse. Don't get me wrong, things can get a lot worse.
Yeah.
But I've said this before, I really hate the statement of we're destroying the Earth or we're destroying all life on Earth or
Well, yeah, we're increasing life on Earth, actually.
yeah.
It's just gross life.
Yeah.
It's like algae and bugs and mice and cockroaches.
Yeah, so
Silverfish.
it's like the statement
Ants.
is inherently dishonest to me, but it not maliciously dishonest.
You
Like,
make...
maybe at the top, maybe at a higher point it is maliciously dishonest, but it's my job. I go to people's houses and I advise them on how to make their house stay warmer.
Yeah.
That is my job. Some people, and also I advise them on how to make their electric bill cheaper.
Yeah.
Those are my two functions. Make your house feel more comfortable, make your life cheaper. A lot of them also have the conception that they want to lessen their impact on the environment. And I say, it's fine that you want to try to do that, but if we're going to do that, let's focus on your local environment. So, how's the air quality around your house? Would changing this then improve the air quality around your house? Because nothing that you do in your 2,000 square foot house is going to have any real impact.
So
But does it make you happier to have a healthier environment? Is the air going to be cleaner? Is there going to be less pollution? Are you going to be like doing these things that make it better? And I there's only one person I've talked to about that directly, but I don't want to be selling someone something false.
So if you act as if everyone would do what you do, right, as a sort of like, at least I will be the virtuous voice here.
Yeah.
That might be enough if everyone was trying to cut back to stop any runaway effects. That was the whole point of Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah.
It wasn't to get rid of pollution. It was that there is a sort of threshold of positive feedback that you can avoid if you just, what's the COVID term? Slow the curve or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, so you slow the curve, and then a highway is built, and the building of a highway, so even repairing a section.
Right, but the highways are going to be built either way. And
Yeah.
so what you're doing is you're just taking off the top 10%, which makes the difference for a runaway effect.
Okay, a top 10%. However, the little individual human, even if every single one changed it, they wouldn't take off 10% off the top. They would take like 1.
Well, not exactly, because so the main producers, right, are manufacturing and transportation. And if you change your buying habits, the manufacturers are going to be transporting less goods, and they're going to be producing less goods.
Yeah, but changing...
So one thing I've noticed is that a lot of the people that are like, we're killing the earth, are the same kind of people that eat like Snickers, bags of chips, that sort of thing. They have a bunch of garbage. They buy a bunch of clothes they don't need, and then they give them to charity or something like that. Yeah. Or they buy a new iPhone.
Yes.
And the issue is not the iPhone. The iPhone's a very small thing in and of itself. But and if it makes your life better, it makes your life better. I'm not going to decry someone for making their life better. But if you're doing both at the same time, you're essentially enabling the system that you believe is out of your control to continue manufacturing, and the manufacturing and the transportation is the real problem. So the things you can really do, if everyone followed them, and this is something I've been unsure about. If no one else is doing a boycott, should you still do the boycott? Now, I think for your own, I think the answer is, at the very least, you should do it if you believe that could turn on you in the future sometime if you don't, right? Like, I didn't use Unity because I didn't like the subscription license, and now that seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
But if I was just boycotting Unity, I don't like them and no one else is going to boycott them, and they never turn on anyone, I just don't like their model.
Yeah. Then
the question is, should I just, use Unity? I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But I think it tends to pay off in the end anyways. So if individuals are buying local and not going on holidays as often, I do think that actually has a significant difference. If you look at, for instance, human population has massively increased since the 60s. Like it went from 2 billion to now 8 billion, I think. Yeah. Our pollution from highway travel has basically stalled since the 90s. Yeah. Because we've made things so much more efficient and we're traveling less in some senses. So there are things you can do. Yeah. And of course, if everyone is of the mindset, this is where it gets weird. When the government is saying, you need to do your part and use the paper towels, right? If the citizen mindset is such that we believe this is a valuable thing, the government should be implementing those things. The government should stop building the highways. The government should stop, I don't know, like right now in Canada, we have the Liberals who they're pushing for more oil pipelines. They're at the same time, and they're subsidizing oil. At the same time, they're banning single-use plastics and they're decrying pollution and that sort of thing. And now I'm not against oil pipelines, actually. I think they're, as far as I'm aware, the best way to transport oil around. And we're not going to stop transporting oil. If we were going to stop transporting oil, then sure, stop the pipelines. Yeah. But we're not, because people are driving to the protests for the pipelines. Yeah. Like, you have to not use oil for us to not need oil. Yeah. So, and oil pipelines are like the safest, the quickest, they cause the least mess. Yeah. They've got a lot going for them.
And like nuclear power plants the old designs like Fukushima and the Soviet one, we can build pipelines now that don't have messes nearly as bad as ones in the past, because old pipelines were literally just a pipe. But now we have it's a pipe, and inside it's actually a suspended pipe with an umbilical cord basically running along the whole thing. And so if one part cracks, it's actually this loose pipe. And then around it...
They have sensors everywhere.
Yeah, they have sensors everywhere. Some are designed... Remember, I think it's the Norwegian pipeline has this design, where if it cracks in that area, it basically shoots out quick expanding spray foam into the whole area and basically just plugs up the pipe. They'll stop working, but then they can go to that section, shut off. All right, let's fix it. We'll remove this.
And even if it doesn't have this, it's just a pipe going through tundra or something, right? Yeah. we don't have teleporters. So you're comparing it to boats, trains, and trucks, basically.
Yeah.
Planes as well, but planes would just be so inefficient. It's not even worth considering.
All right, here's your oil delivery. You use most of it on the way over.
So trucks are very inefficient because you're paying for a vehicle to carry all the weight on that it's using the fuel that it needs to transport, and it can only carry a tiny amount relative to how much people use at a time, and it has to go vast distances. So trucks are least efficient. Boats and trains are both pretty efficient because they don't have to deal with the weight as much. Like a train's just inertia, and a boat floats. But if a boat spills, that's a pretty nasty spot for it to spill, and they always leak. Like the way oil tankers at least used to, and I think they still do, clean out their ship after is they just pump in ocean water and then they pump it out. Like that's a good day. That's not an oil spill. That's just a good day. So they're always causing that. Trains have a couple. So
that town experienced one of those issues. It was a chemical train, but
So trains, they're fairly efficient. Not as efficient as a pipeline because a train is like a pipeline, but only a little bit of a pipeline.
Yeah.
Because the great thing about oil is it's a liquid, which means with a pipeline, if you push a foot of oil, if you use the energy to push an oil a foot, basically, you're actually pushing all the oil in the. I mean, like that's obviously you have to actually push the entire weight of all the oil, but you can push it on one end and it gets to the other end.
You can use physics to help you as well.
You push it on one end, it gets to the other end. With a train, you can only do that a bit at a time. But the other issue is trains can crash, and a train full of oil. There was a town in Quebec that got like annihilated during a train crash. The other problem is the more oil trains you have going, the bigger target they are for terrorists.
Yeah.
Because it's actually a fairly destructive way to disrupt economy and cause a lot of damage fairly easily. Yeah. And so most trains that carry stuff like chemicals and oil already are on random schedules. Yeah. So that terrorists can't plan stuff. Mm-hmm. And you would just be increasing that with more trains. Mm-hmm. And now pipelines is a target for terrorists to blow up, but at least you're not going to be like, hurting someone. Yeah.
So anyways, just taking the step back from it's still kind of macro, but less macro about just talking about the sort of scale things. Yeah. It's how are we quote unquote destroying the earth? Like the thought there, it's really frustrating to me because like, okay, if I change the statement, make it better. We're killing off humans. So we can have that as a rather caveat. We're killing off humans. But even then, humans are really hard to kill. Okay. So we're making people's lives less pleasant. We're making, like, let's give the, not the devil's due, but the devil's advocate is due, I don't know, like, our actions are doing the things we're saying they're doing.
Okay, so here's my environmentalist pitch, right?
That's kind of finished. Yeah. So our actions are doing what we're saying they're doing. And we are going to have a lot of problems. So we go through it with all that. I still don't conceivably see how that kills all humans. It might make our lives a lot worse for a period of time. It might be a long period of time. But it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of humanity, which would be the next step. It might make life suck, but maybe focus on that in your propagandist... Well, it won't even be propaganda as much at that point, but focus on that of, hey, do you want to go fishing and not have like your fish full of plastic? Do you want to go for a walk and have the air be like pleasant to breathe in?
Yeah.
Do you want to look out and see a salt crystal mountain because the salt hasn't dissolved due to things...
Do you want people to stop being insane and polarized?
Yeah.
Do you want people to be able to sleep and... Yeah.
Do you want to actually look at what pollution does and the chemicals that affect people? Do you want it so that your children have as much testosterone as you did, which is already lower than your parents' testosterone?
Do you want depression to lessen or go away entirely?
Like, be honest
Cancer to lessen
about it at the very least. Like, that's like mercury in the fish, so that causes things like reduce that levels. That's what environmentalism,
lead and gas,
used to be. Like when I was even thinking about in grade 5, like we greenhouse gas was what it's called. The greenhouse effect was what it's still called. Like things are going to get warmer, but the greenhouse gas was secondary to the other pollutions that were more like you pick up the garbage so it looks nice and it's not leaching into the environment and then coming back around and poisoning you.
So what the greenhouse gases do is they increase the energy in the climate system. And what that means is that things are more random. So you'll have bigger storms, you'll have more lightning storms, you'll have more forest fires, you'll have more hurricanes, you'll have stronger hurricanes, you'll have more tsunamis potentially. So a lot more people will die, like thousands, hundreds of thousands, because everything's just less predictable. You'll have more cold snaps, like in Texas. You'll have more heat waves. You'll have droughts. Things will die out. So greenhouse gases, they're kind of the hardest to see the one-to-one relationship with, but they are also one of the bigger effects. And also that warming does mean that you have places like Greenland melting and Antarctic melting and water levels rising. But the water levels rising, they're not going to rise like 500 feet, right? But
and the Dutch have seemed to be able to deal with it.
But the problem with the water levels, the problem with all of that is you have the place where people live tends to be right against the water.
Yeah.
And so you're getting rid of habitable land.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue. And the other thing is that it's a lot of fresh water that's frozen up in these things, and that's mixing with the salt water, and so that could destroy the Gulf Current. And this is what Day After Tomorrow was based on. Yeah. If the Gulf Current goes, so Europe is a fairly warm place, right? It's actually level with Canada, not the United States.
Yeah.
And yet it has like tropical climates basically in Italy and Spain and whatnot. And then Scotland can be north of here.
Yeah.
It's actually very far north. But the Gulf Current keeps it much warmer. Same with the Scandinavian area, like Norway and Sweden and whatnot. So if the Gulf Current collapses, everyone there basically has to leave because it's going to get as cold as Canada, and they're not built for Canada in the slightest. And so a lot of people will die. A lot of people will have to leave. So that, and if that collapses, we could like the this would be like far end of the scale. But if you have something like the Cambrian collapse, you could have an ice age that kills off like 90% of people, right? Like that. I mean, that's not why, it's like, and that's the thing is like, okay, so if I turn off my lights when I leave the room, I stop an ice age. Like that doesn't, because what you're saying, okay, you turn off the lights, that's a tiny bit less, lights don't even use that, like LEDs don't even use that much energy, but you're stopping it's better if you turn off your coffee maker, really. Yeah. But
unplug your Xbox.
Yeah, even that, like, heat is really where it's at, right? Like, so the main things are going to be your toaster, your electric heater,
refrigerator,
your refrigerator, your computer. But things like LED lights are not actually making that much heat. But so you turn off the light. That's a tiny bit less electricity. That means that you're burning less fossil fuels at your power plant, which means that that's slightly less CO2 in the atmosphere, that's slightly less fossil fuel that needs to be transported to the place. Yeah. And that means that you have avoided contributing to a runaway greenhouse gas effect. Because there's issues, like there's bogs all over Siberia. Yeah. They're full of methane. And methane is, 30 times more insulating than carbon or something? Yeah. And if those thaw, because we have issues now here where houses are collapsing because permafrost is thawing. Like here, actually, we have trees that are dying en masse because the temperatures are so high that we can have spruce beetles come through and kill off thousands or hundreds of thousands of acres of forest. Those become hundreds of thousands of acres of dry wood. Those burn. That causes tons of smoke and nobody can breathe. Yeah. And we also have winter with much heavier snow, so trees are snapping under the weight. Yeah. And we have like no ozone layer here specifically. Like it's actually healing around the world, but like it's kind of like a spotlight here. It's more constant. It's thinner here. Yeah. And so people get skin cancer. They have to wear sunscreen when they go outside. You can't just run out and play. Yeah. You have to stop your kids when they want to have fun and say, no, put on sunscreen. Yeah. It really does lower the quality of your life, and it does completely change the environment, completely destroy the world. We used to be a semi-arid zone. Now we're not at all. We have troubles with our salt now because it sticks together from the moisture. Yeah. There's very obvious things going on.
So water tables are rising. At our dad's house, we have to have a constant dehumidifier running now because I discovered mushrooms growing in the basement. And so he took a check, and our basement had 85% humidity. And so we have to have a constant dehumidifier running. A comedian I remember came here and said he had this whole sketch of he was in a hotel, and they said, "Do you want a humidifier?" Like, I didn't realize that they were saying, "Do you want to live or not?" I woke up in the morning, I was stuck to the bed, barely able to breathe. There's no moisture left in my body.
Yeah, it used to be very dry here. And And then, of course, you have to run more heaters now during cold snaps, and you have to buy air conditioners, and you have to have dehumidifiers, and that uses more energy. So there's even more of a strain on the whole system, which means you have less resources. Everything's more expensive, and so people don't like inflation, right?
Yeah.
Like extra 3% inflation is bad, and it is bad. It makes because most people are living on the edge. That little bit puts them over. That is also true with with climate change, right? It's that little bit that puts you over the edge.
Yeah.
It makes your life miserable. It might not hurt humanity, but it hurts you. And I think, yes, with inflation, you can blame the government typically because we don't have fiat currency, so it's kind of their fault if things go out of control, even if it's because they're dealing with stuff beyond their control, like a pandemic or something. But you can say they mishandled it, but when you don't like how the climate is ruining your life, you have to hate everyone.
Yeah.
and yeah, that's not worth it. But I saw an ad recently where they were saying something about preserve wetlands. They're preventing the climate crisis, which I thought was quite the upgrade.
Yeah, no, the climate crisis, that's what they've been saying for a while. And global boiling instead of warming. That's another one that they're saying in Europe.
Really? Because, see, global warming is technically correct, but it's misleading, which is why they changed it to climate change.
Yeah.
Because the warming is a 2 to 6 degrees Celsius level. Like, it's not really noticeable. Like, 6 degrees is noticeable, but it's not by much, right?
Yeah.
And so people are saying, it's not that much warmer. And you're like, yeah, okay, fine. Global warming is a bad term because the Earth's energy level isn't going to rise by much. Yeah. But the amount of energy it requires to raise the Earth's temperature by 2 to 6 degrees is massive, which means that the system itself will become chaotic.
Yeah.
So the problem isn't actually the heat, it's the chaos.
Yes.
And so that's why they changed to climate change. So global boiling is totally avoiding the whole... Yeah. It's not the heat that's the issue at all. Like, an ice age could be the problem from global warming because it just sends things out of control.
Yeah. Again, day after tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, that guy, he's also the same guy that did 2012, I believe. Yeah. And he bases his stuff on real things. Like, he's not just some...
Neutrinos mutating.
The Earth... I think I've talked about the Earth crust shift theory before, right? Like, the crust is sort of floating on top of Earth and it like, spins independent of the core. Yeah. And that's a theory that was real. I think, like I talked about how there was a sort of disproving of it in 2014 or something. Yeah. But nobody knew the reason for it, so it's like, it's neutrinos. Yeah. So he comes up because...
I'm sorry, they're not biological. They cannot mutate.
But it's the same process. So you could... We know what it means by mutating, right? Yeah. And how do you... Okay.
How would you describe them changing their nature?
Well, no. There is an unknown scientific phenomenon which causes Earth plate shift, okay? Yeah. How do you make a movie that uses an unknown field of science to describe...
Neutrinos were very unknown at that time.
No, not even that. Like, let's say they're fully known. Humans don't know everything. Yeah. There could be a way neutrinos mutate, right? Yeah. So what I'm getting at is it's very easy to dismiss something as unscientific, but science isn't a complete system.
Fair enough.
So anything new that we learn... So... Like I think I told you about how there's this new theory that the universe isn't expanding. It's that light gets tired. Did I tell you about that?
No, you didn't.
Okay, so, well, it's an old theory, but there's a guy that did some math and kind of touched it up a bit. So, the whole idea behind the universe expanding is because of red and blue shift, right? Yeah. We see that everything is red light. Like, all the stars are shifting towards red all around us. And so the idea is that, well, red light happens the further if you're moving away from something. And so everything is moving away from us, but everything in every direction is moving away from us. Yeah. Which doesn't really make sense unless everything's expanding. Yeah. Or another reason. There might be another one. Why is that? Maybe Earth is stinky and Earth is literally the center of the universe and everything is moving away from Earth. Yeah. I mean, that's another option. So it might not be expanding. It might actually just be Earth is getting left alone. I wonder if there's like a stinky Earth theory.
Or the laws of physics could not be as we think, and light.
Right. So well, this doesn't actually go against the laws of physics, I guess. But the idea is that the further light travels, it might actually go through a redshift over time. Mm. And so it's called the tired light theory. And it's basically the idea that as light travels from its origin point, it becomes more and more redshifted. So everything could be stationary, and you could be looking at a bunch of objects that are stationary, but the light's so far away that it's redshifted.
Yeah.
And so this new guy's theory, he's taken the expansion theory and the tired light theory and combined them and said, okay, what if there's tired light and everything's expanding? But what that would mean is that all of our distances are wrong and all our speeds are wrong because we have to adjust for how fast light gets tired, which means the universe might actually be like 100 billion years old instead of 14 billion years old. Because how they calculated the age of the Earth is they said, how long would it take for everything to crunch together based on the speed of the redshift, right? And so the universe could be much older than we think, which would also, weirdly, make the Fermi paradox worse, I guess.
Yeah.
Because as we understand the universe right now, humans are some of the earliest possible life forms in the universe.
Yeah.
Earthlings are some of the earliest possible life forms. Like, dinosaurs didn't do it, or something, but life on Earth is some of the earlier life that we think would be possible.
Yes.
Because the sun is one of the oldest stars. But because this, or rather, another thing that supports this tired light theory is that there is at least one star, the Methuselah star, I believe it's called, which is, I don't know how they calculate the age of a star exactly, but its calculated age is older than the calculated age of the universe. And so, there's a few theories about how that could work, I guess. Well, there's a few hypotheses you could come up with about that, right?
Do you know the sausage string theory of the universe?
I guess that means it collapses and expands and collapses.
Yeah, so it comes back. And
right.
So it's like there's periods where it's basically like this. So universe collapses, but Methuselah just, I ain't going. And then Big Bang happens and Methuselah's just still sitting there.
Well, yeah, it's like that Kilowog in DC.
Yeah.
When they had their New 52 universe reset, Kilowog's the only character that survived the universe being reset. So he actually has all the memories from the other DC
canonical weirdness.
Multiverse stuff.
Yeah.
But because they reset everything except for him.
Yeah.
So the Methuselah star could actually be from an earlier universe.
Yeah.
Or it could be that our calculations of the universe are wrong.
Yeah. Or calculations of Methuselah are wrong.
And it's funny, I've heard people say, well, it's a lot more likely that our calculations are wrong. Like, not about this specifically, but this sort of idea where people say, it's more likely that our calculations of the age of the universe are wrong than the Methuselah star is from a different universe, right? But says who? Like, how do you know what's more likely and what's not? If we're wrong about something, we don't know what's more likely and what's not more likely.
Yeah.
I guess the one counter-argument to my argument is that we have something in physics called the Standard Model. And we make all these crazy predictions. And they wildly deviate from the Standard Model, right? Because anything's possible. But then when we figure it out, it's always roughly in line with the Standard Model. And so the Standard Model does seem to be on the right track. And so things that deviate from that do seem to be less likely but only based on our observation.
Now, it would be a fun but kind of unprovable theory unless it happens observably within our lifetimes. Is the fun, so gravity things come together at like whatever amount.
Yeah.
Like just at random points for no reason we can determine, just suddenly one of those rules just changes a little bit. Like book, and it's different.
There is theories about that sort of thing because the measured speed of light has been different over time in a sort of consistent pattern. So the speed of the constant of the speed of light has changed over time. And
like water just starts boiling at 101 instead of 100.
Yeah, well, that sort of thing happens, right? Because we say the wavelength of amber light is this, and then we remeasure it and it's slightly different. Because all these constants are based on averages because none of our instrumentation is sensitive enough to actually get the exact value, right? And so we say, oh, we're fine-tuning our instruments. But it could be that we're actually getting new readings.
Our instruments have always been perfect and just readings constantly change.
Yeah, and so water suddenly changing the boiling temperature, you'd probably notice that already just because you can't measure the exact 100 degrees Celsius, right? You'd keep getting these variables and it would be very close.
Yeah.
Because if it was a big change, then we would be like, okay, so obviously something's different now.
Yeah.
But if the change was so I guess
subtle and over time.
So if the laws of physics changed quickly, that could actually be something we could measure. Yeah, because we'd be like, oh, water is suddenly boiling differently. Yeah. And we might think everything else first, like, okay, the pressure of Earth has suddenly changed, or but we could test that independently. Mm-hmm. And the only way we could disprove the independent test would be like, well, but then Earth's pressure measurement, like the system of bars, has also changed. But then you'd be like, well, one of the fundamental forces has changed at least. So that'd be very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, it's just thoughts I had though on the talking about Earth is dying.
Yeah, I think what a lot of that rhetoric does, because it is rhetoric, but I think what a lot of it does is it just robs people of hope.
Yeah.
And the thing you have to keep in mind is that, I think I've talked about this before on the show, that there's no point in making your life worse so it'll last longer.
Yeah.
Like that's like a 2-for-1 bad idea.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I can make my life worse, but at least it'll last longer. At least my suffering will be prolonged.
Yeah.
That's not a good... Now, and I've talked about this too, there's win-wins. Like LED lights, I think... Well, sort of. There's always a trade-off somewhere, right? Like LED lights lack a warmth that... so they don't feel as good. But... Well, they lack a literal warmth, but they also lack a warmth of light, which was eventually fixed mostly. But early ones especially had this issue. Where you get brighter light for cheaper, and you're also helping the environment. Or let's say you really enjoy, I don't know, driving around a refrigerator that's pumping CFCs into the atmosphere. And you discover, you know what, I really prefer the hobby of hiking, let's say. Yeah. Like hiking from my home, not driving out to a place and hiking. And not buying like a bunch of gear that you have to get shipped up. But I just like going for walks outside my home. I like that even more than driving my refrigerator around. Yeah. That's a win-win. Because you're doing something you like more. Or this is a more real one that is done more and more. And could be done even more. Lawns. So a lawn is a fairly... I guess one of the issues with environmentalism is it's so broad that people are always talking about different things. Because you say, I'm an environmentalist. And it's like, oh, so you care about like air pollution. It's like, yeah, but also I care about water wastage. Las Vegas is draining California of water just for its little existence in the middle of a desert. And almonds are like, they destroy the water table just so you can have this disgusting nut thing on your food.
I'm an environmentalist. I hate unnecessary noise. I hate noise pollution.
Yeah, well, I do.
Well, I do to an extent as well. It's like I hear a hot tub start whining and I want to light the hot tub on fire and have it burn down.
So you have lawns, which take up a huge amount of water, huge amount of maintenance. They have a, what's it called? Monoculture, I guess? Yeah. They're an undiverse ecosystem. And so they're likely to collapse and they can allow for...
one species of insect to...
Yeah, invasive species to just sort of dominate it and spread out from there. Spirit of the Law did a great video recently about Argentina crazy ants, where it seems like parking lots give them a tactical advantage over Australian meat ants. And so the best way to help ants defend against Argentina crazy ants is to have more varied terrain. Yeah. Because they do worse in varied terrain. They prefer like even terrain. So
you can let clover grow.
Yeah, or you can have a lawn that has a bunch of natural plants in it. Yeah. Of your natural environment, you can have bushes. You can have plants that you don't have to water. You can have variety. You can have it mixed. Yeah. You can have a little strip of lawn maybe. But you can have a lawn that looks nicer and isn't full of invasive species and is cheaper to maintain and isn't drinking water like crazy because it's not meant to be there, and it isn't causing invasive species to get an upper hand, and you have a nicer lawn. And same with agriculture. You can have these sort of tiered systems. Like the Three Sisters plant is the famous one, right? Squash, lentils, and corn. Yeah. You can grow these three plants in the same location. And so you're getting 3 times as much food from the same amount of land. Yeah. And they're all supporting each other. Like the corn provides a support stock for the squash's vines or something like that. Yeah. And they're nitrogen fixers. The lentils are nitrogen fixers or something like that. So you don't drain the soil. So you get 3 times as much food. You don't need to make the field go fallow. And there's a Rimworld mod that adds the Three Sisters plants in. And when you play with it, you're like, this is overpowered. It's like, yeah, it is.
Well, there's the other thing. It's not the Three Sisters, but it's the cycling. I can't remember where this model was done. It's 4 fields. Each one of them, they still grow monocultures each field, but you basically have them next to each other. And so you grow their plants. Each one grows a different crop. Then you take the seeds and you just put them in the next field over the next year. Yeah. And you grow that and you keep
that's crop rotation.
Yeah, crop rotation. Yeah.
But that's done. But that's the nice thing about the Three Sisters is you get 3 times the food without needing to do that extra work.
Yeah.
And because the monoculture crops, they also have the issue of, again, the ecosystem diversity is way lower, so you can have a disease wipe out everything. Or you can have insects come in and they just cause a blight or something.
Yeah.
You can even have more elaborate systems. So if you combine like bluebells and apple trees and grapes, and I can't remember. You can have essentially these, you can have plants that bloom very early spring that attract bees to them so that the bees are still around when the next round of trees bloom. And the next round and the next round and the next round. And then you have plants that provide shade for the plants beneath them. You can...
Eventually you're going to end up with a rainforest.
Sort of, yeah. And you can even design these things so that deer can live in them, and then you can hunt the deer as well while you have an entire field. And there's models of these that have like 7 or 8 plants that all are growing together in sort of harmony. And the worst part about these things, basically, like the reason this isn't done widely, is it's a lot harder to automate. Because, it's harder to drive a tractor through a forest.
Yeah.
And it's also harder. But I don't know if you've seen like, is it tomatoes? They have like floating tubes that pick the tomatoes automatically with magic or something. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah. So the thing that freaked me out was, what are they called? A cranberry harvester. So you know how they used to harvest cranberries?
They flood the field and then they grab it in buckets. And
Yeah. So this machine, there's a tree, like all the bushes there. The machine drives over them, and the berries are there. The machine drives over them, and the berries are gone, and it's collected them.
Wow.
Or that weeding machine that was developed. This is alternative to spraying your fields with chemicals and having to inject your plants with DNA and make sure the chemicals don't kill them. Yeah.
Breeding them, but yeah.
It's so it drives over it. It's like, the water, like the spot water, looks like one of those. So it drives over it and it fires lasers at the poor little weeds that are trying to grow. And it's like, you're not growing here, invasive species. And it just kills them while they're in buds in the ground, and it just recognizes the plants it should kill.
And the thing about like the magical tomato snakes and the laser whatnot and the amazing, like the Dutch have incredible farming techniques that use basically no nitrogen and produce more food than the rest of the world. Like it's incredible what they can do because they had this famine and they're like never again, and so they have like the best farming techniques on earth. Like I don't know the numbers, but like the main food providers on earth are like the United States, Canada, China, and like Netherlands or something. And the Netherlands is tiny compared to those countries.
I thought that Ukraine was also up there as a producer.
Yeah. Well, for like sunflowers and stuff. I don't know.
They also produce grain.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what the exact numbers are. And Netherlands might be way down the list, but they're like 10 times higher than they should be relative to their size, basically. Yeah.
So why isn't everyone farming like the Netherlands?
Well, not everyone is swamp Germans. Not everyone. It's probably partly environment, and also, techniques need to be shared and stuff like a lot of African farmers. I can't remember where it was. Niger, maybe they use like really bad techniques where they just sort of leave everything in the same soil year after year after year, and they just spray it with pesticides to make up for it, and so they produce half as much food, and it's all like toxic. And then you look at Brazil, where they just burn rainforest and then grow in rainforest soil for like 5 years, and then it becomes dead, and they have to burn more rainforest. So Brazil is probably worse than Africa. But some people they don't have the soil, or they have really bad techniques.
Yeah.
There's also good soil in Brazil, but I don't know. It's probably just easier in the short term.
Yes.
And Brazil has very much a culture of short term gains, and it's not a stupid culture to have either. It's probably the same in Africa. If your country's unstable, your leadership, your lives, whatever, short term is much more important. Yeah. And that's why this is what Jordan Peterson talks about again and again and again. If you want people to care about the environment, improve their lives. Yeah. Because the Brazilians can't care about the rainforest while they need short term gains. Because, look, if your currency, let's say you have $10,000 in the bank right now, right? Yeah. And the currency tomorrow could drop to zero. It makes sense to go out and buy as much stuff as you can that you can use. Yes. Like, I have a gift card right now, and these gift cards, apparently, they get stolen all the time. Like, it's very easy to hack them and just take all the money. So the best move for me is to buy as much stuff as I can with that gift card until it runs out. Yeah. As soon as possible. And so that's what the Brazilians do, because the next leader might destroy their currency. Yeah. And so they get as much stuff as they can. And that's a good move to make, because otherwise your money's worthless. And so I think it's probably the same with the slash and burn agriculture. It's like, this is, maybe if I set up a farm with good soil and I did crop rotation, in 10 years' time this would pay off. Yeah. But it's like, I don't have 10 years. I've got to make money now.
Yeah.
And so, if you want people to care about the environment and to just actively be working on it, passively working on it, actually.
Yeah.
Just let them have a tomorrow.
No, it's...
But I think the problem, though, you get is, I don't know, Jordan Peterson keeps getting people on that are like, you don't have to care about like air pollution, and the environment's always changing, and it's can't you just stay in the center of just stick with the messaging of make people as rich as fast as possible, but don't dismiss the actual problems. We have real problems. There's a lot of problems. I think Bjorn Lobberg, he's close. I'd like him to be a bit more concerned, because his economic models he uses, he's always like, well, electronic cars are pointless. They're actually worse for the environment, and you should do this. And maybe he's right, but an economic model can't predict everything. That's kind of his complaint with the environmentalists in the first place.
Yeah.
And so he says it would be better to spend $1 million on developing houses that can withstand harsher temperatures than $1 million in trying to reduce climate change through a carbon tax, something like that, right? And maybe he's right, but again, his model is still a model.
Yeah.
And so, and electric cars, well, it's always tricky, right? Because you say, this isn't happening, and then it's happening somewhere. Yeah. Because you're like, look, people want electric cars, let them have electric cars. Stop putting electric cars down. They're fun. But then you have places like California that are like, we're going to ban all combustion engine cars by 20.
Yeah.
And it's, okay, so what happens is everyone is in reaction to the, not even the worst, just like the bad parts of the opposition. And it's like this triangle of everyone's looking past each other. And there's this whole middle ground of we could work with each other here. And instead it's like, electric cars are bad. And it's like, ban all combustion engines. And it's just because, and then what you have.
The markets determine.
What I was talking about with the Canadian government, how the Liberals, they're like, we'll have this oil pipeline and we'll have this. Why that bothers me is it becomes very obviously that they don't care about any of it. It's all about either making them look good.
It's optics.
Or gaining more control.
Yeah, that's optics.
Because if everyone has an electric car, that means they can't travel as far. Yeah. Now, people say I like freedom, I like my gas car. That I'm not going to say is true, because let's say you want to be independent from the government, right? You're a libertarian, you want to be free from the government. You've got your gas-powered vehicle and they can't tell you what to do, right? Thing is, it's very easy to produce electricity on your own. It's very hard to pump and refine oil.
Yeah.
Crack, pump, refine. But you can, you can get a solar panel and then that's yours. Or
you could burn wood, turn a wheel.
Or you can make a hand crank. You grab some magnets and some copper wire and you just walk, you have a plunger, like a butter churn, and you just move the magnet up and down in the copper coil.
You have a 4 horsepower car.
You just have horses charging electric cars.
Yeah, you know the old mill wheel, which was a donkey walking in circles and circles? You just have that. And then your car's powered.
Storage is insanely valuable.
Yes.
Because perfect store, here's your sci-fi, I was trying to come up with that metal that was indestructible and weightless. No, here's your crazy sci-fi tech. Perfect storage.
Yes. Because
what that means is you can travel anywhere for free, right? Because it costs you energy to go up a hill, and then you get it all back going down.
Yeah. And
you want to go, you're on a ski lift. The ski lift is powered by the fact that you go down the hill, and then it uses that power to bring you up the hill. Well, no, because the storage would be... Yeah, but you know what I mean.
But on top of that, so Greenland and Iceland, I think it's more Iceland, their power comes from geothermal.
Yeah.
So they use so little of the power they produce.
They have to find stuff to do it with, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they melt sidewalks with electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that was until the cryptocurrencies took off.
Oh.
Because...
Did all the crypto bros move to Greenland?
No, to Iceland. Yeah.
Iceland?
Because Iceland has the cheapest electricity on Earth.
It's cold, so you need heat.
And it's cold. So, well, no, you don't need heat. They've got... they live on 1 million volcanoes. No, but it's cold, so you can passively cool your... Well, you can more cheaply cool your GPUs.
Yeah.
And so it actually vastly affected the Icelandic grid. Like, here's actually the amount of power used by cryptocurrencies was and is to some extent non-insignificant.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know the numbers, but it was, it's not in the like fractions of a percent, it's like multiple percent.
Oh, there's that incredibly stupid thing Germany did, which was, so there's a warehouse that had something like 200 GPUs in it. These are high-end GPUs. And they were stealing power from the grid and basically making cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
German police went in there, they found out about this, and they destroyed all the GPUs as a message. And it's like, these were like high-end, very useful things. Like, police department, seize these and do the thing that you do with seized stuff, which is sell them again for a much cheaper price because they're criminal assets, so you resell it. And you can make so much money.
Sell it at a scalper price at least and flood the market.
Yeah.
It's win-win. That's such a shame. Yeah. I can kind of see the logic, like it's the sort of fruit of the poison apple type thing.
Yeah.
But, or fruits of the
poison tree.
Yeah, whatever that police saying is. Like, if a police officer isn't allowed to arrest you for having drugs if they broke into your house to find them.
Yeah.
So whatever that was. Yeah. And so, or it's the same thing as like, you don't want to use the medical research the Nazis determined, or Area 731 determined. But I feel like that the thing the police shouldn't do is seize all the cryptocurrencies and use them for themselves. But the GPUs weren't harming no one.
Yeah.
They were just bystanders. Just, let them
Well,
free.
they can't seize the cryptocurrency. That's being uploaded and created.
But they could like beat them until they got their wallets or something. Like they could torture them for their wallets or something maybe.
Yeah.
But at least just seize the cryptocurrency. It's interesting. Like a lot of Silicon Valley types, it's all like environment. And then they're making, they have server farms and they're using more electricity than anyone. Now, it's funny because a company like Google, right? They used AI to cut their electricity costs by 30% by more efficient layouts.
You know what's cooler than that? Japanese railroad company using slime molds.
You told me about this, to build a more efficient subway system.
Yeah.
But my point is actually the opposite with Google. It'd be even more. They could be 100% efficient if they just didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hypocritical to be like, well, we're doing fun, cool things.
Yeah,
It's okay when we do it.
Yeah, it's the wearing the mask, lying thing, and the not saying.
I don't think they're lying. I think they do care. It's just everyone cares. It's just they like their luxuries, and you should like your luxuries.
Yeah, but like the thing that gets me sometimes is,
I think it's just more be conscious. Don't leave your tap on, stuff like that.
One of the things, so like I pay a lot of attention to developing technology.
Yeah.
One of the ways to do that is there's certain scientific journals that publish this information.
Yeah.
And in the past, it's only really been the past 2 to 3 years. Like, this technology will do this with 0 emissions. And like, that's the big thing, or like a lower emission, or it'll help battle the climate change.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, sure, that's fine. But I look at this technology that you're talking about. It's like, if that's developed further, that would mean I would have to pay 50% less money for my life. I think I care about that far more than this will do some environment stuff. It's like,
but why not both?
But that's like the whole focus of the article is that thing.
Okay, but go into your client where you were saying, don't do it for this, this, and this. Let's say. What if you say, why not both to them? Like, what if you go like, hey...
well, that's what I say. Like, this will have this impact, but like, let's focus more on the local, on your life.
But what if you just said, yeah, no, that is a great thing. And on top of that, it does this, like, not even let's focus on this necessarily. Like, I don't know the exact situation, but like, you could be like, yeah, no, that is definitely a reason to do it. And it also has this benefit. Like, because I do think, you don't want to demoralize people by saying, we're all going to die. But you also don't want to demoralize people by saying you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, because that's how voting works, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're one person out of like 20 or 100 million,
Yeah.
and so your individual vote barely does anything.
Yeah.
But if everyone votes together in the way that, like, if everyone votes like you, as in I vote for what I believe in, and you all believe in the same thing, then you elect a bunch of politicians who cater to elites only and interest groups. And did you see that elite theory study?
No, maybe.
It's so depressing. They basically they looked at what, not who got in, but what laws got passed, and they interviewed a bunch of people. So they said, okay, lower class people, why did you vote these people in? And middle class people, why did you vote these people in? Elite, like upper class people, why did you vote these people in? Interest group, why did you vote these people in? And then they looked at what the politicians actually did, and they found that for the policies that poor people wanted enacted, their vote had no impact on what policies were enacted whatsoever. And middle class people had like a 10% influence on what happened. And then the upper class had a 30 or 40% influence. And now, but the thing was, they said, okay, but it turns out interest groups, which are made up of, which are a bunch of poor people typically getting together and supporting, like Black Lives Matter, something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of poor people get together and say, this is something we believe in, and we will form an organization to put pressure on the government itself.
Yeah.
And they found that, yes, interest groups have about also a 30% influence on politician policies. However, interest groups' policies that they push through to get passed are not influenced by the lower class members whatsoever.
Oh.
And it's the most depressing. It's a study that makes people believe in something called elite theory, which is that only the elites actually have any say in how societies run, because it's so depressing. But the thing that the study, I think they even mentioned it in the study. It was like, okay, so you, like, basically, unless you're a super powerful person, you can't control what happens. Like, the person you vote for can get in, but what they decide to do is not up to you, right? However, we live in a time where culture isn't stratified, I guess. So what the poor people create and like, the elites tend to like as well. So basically, what the way to get things passed that you want is to make, art that elites like and influences them, or to have society, like a culture that the elites like. So there's a movie coming out right now about fighting back against Wall Street or something. And I thought that's interesting because that's kind of been on hold for the last 15 years. And so if someone's making, like, a big budget place is making a movie, my first thought was like, oh geez, they're just self-flagellating rich people. But then I was like, wait a minute. That means that the public who doesn't like the whole Wall Street movement is strong enough that people, at least if all they're doing is pandering, the pandering had enough power to actually get this movie made, right? Yeah. And that means that maybe I've talked to rich people who have very rigid, like, there's rich people, there's elites, and there's wealthy people, and wealthy people, they didn't earn it, and rich people, they don't care, and elites that, like, because they don't want to be the bad rich person, right? But they're super rich, so that it's funny how they, like, I've spent years thinking about this, and they're talking about this, and it's quite funny how they were saying all this. You don't want to be the bad rich person, and that's good, because that means that we have power over the powerful people. And the power is sort of a social power. It's our vote doesn't really do much, but we can whisper in their ear and get them to whisper in the king's ear.
Also, it might change with technology. Always seems to slightly skew the balance, but even then, I don't know how much. So, if you annoy people enough, they might just put your head on a pike.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, is that, like, you look at the Magna Carta, and you can only push people so far.
Yeah.
Or you look at a more peaceful version, Václav Havel, where he just said, screw you guys, I'm making my own society. And then the Czech Republic just ignored the fascists, and they're like, we're living our own country now. Yeah, sure, you're in charge of the government, but we're not listening to you.
Yeah.
You can go to your pretend playhouse meetings all you like. We're going to live in our own society. And that might be what Canada ends up doing. I don't know. It's not, I don't think it's nearly as bad as their situation, but when it's illegal to protest, I mean, what do you do exactly other than that?
Go to prison.
I've noted radio, very interesting conversation on the radio recently. The Million Man March in Canada or something coming up. It's like this protest against gender theory in schools and that sort of thing. And CBC was like, there's this protest going on about this. I was like, oh, weird. I'm surprised CBC's even... Saturday, this is happening at like 4 p.m. There's going to be this protest against it. So we've brought on one of the counter-protesters to talk to them about what they think. And then the person came on, and I hope people were listening to what she said. Now, unfortunately, it seems like, again, with my Legend of Zelda thing, most people don't actually listen to what is said. They listen to their idea of what it means.
Yeah.
Because she didn't say anything. They're like, so why is this bad? She's like, well, racist, bigots, sexist, they don't want us to exist and something. Oh, this fun. They brought on two people. A they, she, and a they, them. Two young women, by the sound of it. And they were talking about how it's bigoted and bad, and we're tearing down all the posters, and we're a free society, so you shouldn't be allowed to protest. And it was, they couldn't, like the protest, like the news reporter was super lowballing, like, so what's the problem? Oh, and why is that bad? And they just, like, I don't think that CBC was doing this on purpose, right? They didn't bring on the other side, but it was just like, they didn't have anything. And
I mean, even though they really do kind of a bad job of it, the BBC actually does have a rule.
CBC was the one that was doing
Yeah,
this.
the BBC has a rule, which is you have to bring on someone on the other side. Even if it's one guy versus a panel of 6, you still have to have the one guy.
Yeah.
You know, if you find like the biggest mongoloid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this was too... I don't know. Would I be the person? No. Well, maybe I would be, but it'd be for a different reason. I was thinking, like, would I be the person in the 40s to be like, you know, when I grew up, I didn't know any left-handed people, and now they're everywhere. Seems like 1 in 10 people's left-handed. But you look at the graphs, and they're not even comparable. You have one graph that goes up quickly and then slows down. That's the left-handed graph. And then you look at transgender, gender-neutral, and it's just exponential without end. Now, maybe we're just seeing... Now, maybe it'll peter out eventually. But you don't see people getting happier, and you don't see any sign of it slowing. And I have yet to see... Maybe you can think of someone. I have yet to see someone who was happy and healthy and then just so happened to discover that they were gender neutral. And they're like, oh, I guess that's me. Like, it always seems to be someone that's already broken in some way. Already unhealthy, already...
I can't think of anyone.
Already, even if it's not, like, the worst struggle. It's like, you never see... Like, you can look at someone and you can be like, yeah, they'll never be gender neutral. You can look at them, you're like, yeah, no, they got it together. And that shouldn't be synonymous. Having it together and not being trans or whatever, that shouldn't be antonyms. They shouldn't be opposite. If it is, and you say, well, the pressure of this condition makes them upset and miserable, I guess is the argument. Like, depression isn't real. You never see someone who's depressed have it all together. But it's not, what I'm saying, I guess, is it's not, okay, yeah, they're confused about this. Like, I mean confused, like their life is tearing them apart because they're trans and they're not living it right. It's like, you haven't tried a healthy diet. Like, you're overweight. Like, there's never like a body, like well, okay. Runner man. Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
Maybe I stand corrected. Very fit athlete. Olympian.
Yeah.
Well, never mind.
Could be other mental things.
Guess I'll go castrate myself. I have been proven wrong. It's so tricky because it's like, there's real questions here, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's one way, maybe it's the other, but it's like, you're a bigot or you're a racist because you didn't accept my pronouns. And that's the thing. It's always too far as well. It's like, okay, maybe there's gender neutral, okay? The circumstances under which gender neutral, I think, could exist would be the multiple personalities where some are male, some are female, let's say. And let's say they're actually souls that you've been possessed, right? By multiple souls.
Yeah, a lot of them are atheists.
Yeah, but if you could have like a religious soul in there too, like a mix.
Yeah.
No, but you're full of souls, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say. And this is, I know that a lot of DID people don't actually think it's multiple people. It's how they interact with their brain and they themselves are aware of it. But let's say that they're wrong and there's actually multiple souls in your head. So gender neutral actually makes sense for that person, right?
Yeah.
This person is a gender neutral being. They're a body containing multiple sexed creatures.
Tentacle.
That still, to me, doesn't mean that you get to dictate language and change it, because that's not how pronouns are used, at least by me, in the first place. Now, maybe you use pronouns differently, but it's as they say you need to respect my pronouns, right? But you need to respect me as well.
Yeah.
And respect my use of pronouns, where I use pronouns as a way to say this is what you look like. I descriptively.
That's actually that's the way you look at the It's very appropriate. Respect is earned.
No, it's not even that. It's you think people should respect you, right?
Yeah.
But you don't respect anyone else because you're demanding they do something. That you're demanding everyone else do change rather than you change. That's not respectful. Now, I'm not saying you need to change either, but you can say, I'm going to refer to myself as they, them, but you call me what works for you. That is the mutual respect sort of scenario.
Yeah.
I find it equally annoying, and I get this a lot, actually, for some reason. Well, I don't get this a lot, but I see it a lot and have people used it against me. Let's say, I don't get this at all, but when I will say something like, wow, Blair White had a good point here. She really made some good points. Like, I'll comment on a video, right?
Yeah.
And someone will reply to it with, you mean he made some good points. It's like, no, you don't get to choose my pronouns either.
Yeah.
It's my language. It's my mouth, okay?
Yeah.
I don't... The real fight is between authoritarians and libertarians. Everyone else is just using their side as a way to get their point across.
You don't get to choose how I speak.
Yeah. The whole point is that See, there's people fighting for different things. There's people fighting against the corruption of society. There's people fighting for freedom. There's people fighting for religion. And it does cause weird mixes.
Yeah.
Maybe, there is some things, maybe you shouldn't profane the sacred, and maybe pronouns are sacred. That's actually something the two sides would be in agreement on. You should call her he. You should call her she. Right? Like those are both people that think pronouns are sacred.
Yeah.
And maybe they're right. I don't think that, but maybe those people are right. Because an argument for their sacredness would be if you are not accurate in your assessment of the world, then you language becomes meaningless and you can't talk about anything and it's impossible to think.
But the moment you try to control me, it's when I get angry.
It's also just like, it's insane, right? Like if I say to you, you must call this color blue in my presence.
Yeah.
It's like, you're just making my life harder. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Did I tell you about that nightmare I had where I met all my friends for the first time after years apart? They're all gathered together. And someone said, well, it's been a while and there's some new people here. Like there's some people I didn't know there that we met while we didn't see you. And how about we just all go around and start by telling each other our pronouns? And in the dream, I just stood up and left. I was like, no. I'm out of here. I'm gone. And that almost happened to me when all of us got back together last month. Like, just, not that, but just this person, they, them pronouns that I know. And I was like, but it wasn't.
You slowly took one of those little Jewish caps, put on your head, and start speaking very fast and very squeakily.
What?
Ben Shapiro.
Oh.
Destroyed them with facts and logic.
Yeah. Okay, folks, now here's the thing. Yeah. No, when you respect people, you don't just say they are wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because they came to their reasons through some sort of... They came to their conclusions some sort of way, and a lot of times it's just plain ignorance. And I think ignorance gets too much of a bad rap. I don't think it's bad to be ignorant at all.
Not at all.
I just think that there's so much propaganda, and it's so hard to tell that propaganda has been used against you. And you think, oh yeah, this is what everyone thinks. But that's propaganda, and you're just not aware of it.
Yeah.
And, like, this is... my friend who I was talking to about this stuff, he's... I think he's above average on recognizing propaganda, actually. And it's just the depth is so much greater than basically anyone is aware.
Yeah.
And, I mean, to have the correct level of awareness, you have to be a crazy conspiracy theorist, basically.
No, look, I speak that.
But actually, like, the things that are done are absurd. Like, an infiltration of academia by Marxists to bring about a communist revolution? Madness.
Sounds like an ordinary Tuesday to me.
A single man destroying the Iranian government so that the British people can have a better deal on oil or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like what was it? The Lithuania was, the Americans allowed the Germans to target their passenger ship so that they would have an excuse to join World War One.
What is it? The super horrible regime in South America. And the fruit companies liked working with him.
Yeah.
Then
he gets kicked out.
There's a revolution. they took over.
And then Dole and United Fruit are like, no.
Yeah, actually. But do you know who helped them with that? Who came up with the idea partly? And I was like,
It was like the CIA or something, right?
No, it was the guy who invented modern advertisement.
Oh, really?
He's one of the guys who went forward with that problem and told them, if you want the cheaper thing, then we're going to have to reinstall it.
Didn't he...
I watched a documentary about him.
Didn't he write a book called Propaganda?
Yeah, no, he loved propaganda. He thought it was a good thing.
No, but he wrote a book called Propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he thought propaganda was a good thing.
But he hated... He's a weird man. Like,
you know, like the doc is like one of those mini YouTube documentaries. It's 20 minutes long. It's about this man's life, and so he didn't do anything he considered wrong. Like he actually had a pretty strong moral compass.
Well, he didn't smoke, and he got his wife to quit.
Yeah, no, he had a pretty strong moral compass. It's just his morals were really, really weird. Like he refused to do some advertising he considered evil, but he helped the fruit company with that whole thing.
Well, he let... I guess the fruit company didn't have to listen to him, right? Like, it's sort of a...
Yeah.
Look, I'm not telling you to smoke. I'm just saying that smoking makes you effective.
He was actually around the time of Nazi Germany. And the Nazis wanted him to help them make propaganda. He refused. He didn't believe in their cause. So they took the book he wrote called Propaganda and used his techniques for their propaganda. But they offered... like him a lot of money, a huge amount of money. It's like, no, that goes against my principles, your party. I don't like
He's just sitting across the table from Goebbels, and Goebbels is reading his book, and Goebbels stops and looks up at him. It's like, dude, not cool. Like, this stuff is messed up, man.
Like,
Goebbels walks out of the room. You disgust me.
Like, a part of this, he made the color green popular.
Yeah, I told you about that.
Yeah, I know. I just getting that reaffirmed. He made a color popular.
He made cigarettes popular with 50% of the population.
Yeah.
He doubled cigarette sales. Impressive guy. I think Did I rant about the Barbie movie at all? Like how it has no reason to have been a cultural phenomenon, and yet they just used money until it was?
No.
Like, all the YouTubers were making videos on Barbie, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's watching Barbie. There's all these ads about Barbie. Everyone's like, Barbie, Barbie, Barbie. But who cares about Barbie, really? Like, this is all Barbie saying, like, I'm going to shove this in your face until you know about it.
Yeah.
Like, well, not Barbie. Mattel.
Oh, yeah, no, they spent a lot of money on their
They spent
campaign.
an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
And, like, it's one of those things where you hate it, but you admire it.
Yeah.
But Star Wars came out. Everyone was talking about Star Wars, and they're like, wow, I like Star Wars. You like Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
This is a great moment. Everyone's connected. Pokemon Go. Well, the original Pokemon. The original Pokemon is the thing that makes me excited about life the most in some ways. Because Pokemon didn't exist. And then, in 5 years, it was the most popular media franchise on Earth.
Yeah.
Which means tomorrow, the thing that unites everyone and makes everyone super excited could appear. The next Pokemon could appear. It's amazing. This thing appeared out of nowhere, and everyone loved it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And everyone was like, Pokemon, I love Pokemon. You love Pokemon? We all talk about Pokemon. We're all having a great time. Pokemon Go comes out. Phenomenon. People are walking that haven't walked in years, getting healthy, getting fit. Everyone's talking, excited.
You know Pokemon Sleep?
Yeah. I mean, I saw it when it was announced like years ago, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of people are using it.
Yeah, helping them sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are going walking. People are like, you like Pokemon? I like Pokemon. Everyone's happy. We're all together. It's amazing. Barbie is not a movie that came out and some people are like, oh, you got to see this. They go to their friend, you got to see this, you got to see this, you got to see this. This is a thing that was like, here was a cultural phenomenon handed down upon high. You will be talking about this. You will watch this. This is the thing. Barbie, Barbie, Barbie. And now I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen pictures of it, and it is gorgeous looking. Like, more movies need to look good. Yeah. Like the color palette is awesome.
Yeah. Also,
Barbie pink is a great color.
The Just Ken song is actually.
I haven't heard it, but
You haven't?
No.
No.
There's so much talk about Barbie that I've been trying to avoid it because it's just getting on my nerves.
The Just Ken song.
Yeah.
Is like is an accidental amazing song, or maybe not. Maybe they did it on purpose. It's a very good song. Like, it has some lines in it which just resonate with me. Like, one of them is, "I'm just Ken, and I'm enough, and I'm great at doing stuff." Well, it's just the little, like, it's in the background, so he's like saying main song, then the backup singer says, "And I'm enough," and like the way that they just do that is, it's very much a person who's quite small and quite sad saying, "No, wait, I'm a person. I am a man. I am myself. I am like more.
Maybe I'll have to. I did listen to a bardcore version of it without the lyrics, and
Yeah. No, the lyric
it was good actually. But,
Yeah, no, I should play the lyric version for you. I want to.
well, maybe I'll watch my own time. I'll see.
No, I'm going to play this for you.
We'll see.
All right.
Yeah. All right. There. Done.
Yes.
Okay. There.
I'm going to now Clockwork Orange you.
That was my review of Barbie.
You're getting Clockwork Orange.
No, I gotta get a drink. Get a long drink. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.